Right, another live room, apparently. Yeah, for no good reason. Except I haven't done one at night for a while, so here I give it a night. Another live room, apparently. People another chance and such. Yeah, so that's all, just a courtesy and such. It's kind of, nice guy I am. So anyway, I think I'll do some comments and such, and we'll see where it goes from there. A few things I can be irritated by, so I might play a PBS video. We'll see how things go. So first, the Danish physicist guy. Might just be nitpicking, yes, but I think you're confusing angular momentum with linear momentum. There's only one kind of momentum, that is momentum. And linear momentum just means nothing's messing with your momentum, so it's straight line momentum. But I would argue that the Earth is doing straight line momentum. It's just having it altered by the extra acceleration of the gravity. But it's not really traveling anything called a curved path, in the sense that none of the little bits inside of the Earth, are you, is actually moving curved paths. It moves, point A and point B turn, okay, as directional places to go. And so it's still straight lines, and it's just the net byproduct of a bunch of changed angles that creates the illusion of a curve. But the physics, the little bits, aren't really curving, aren't really traveling curved paths. Photons don't curve, in spite of what you've been told. And so when we're arguing about conserving a kind of momentum, it kind of works to think of it as there's a vector that you start off at in a situation. Say I'm heading for the moon's gravity, and I have a vector. And then I'm going to have a bunch of changes in my momentum's direction, and I'm going to leave at a certain vector. And the moon is going to travel while I'm doing that. And so the precise angle of the change and the intensity of my momentum, my velocity, are going to change. And all of that, I think, is is relevant to this conversation, in the sense that when we're talking about something going into a system, having a direction, it goes into a system and then it leaves. The point is if I let it leave this way, it goes into a circle and it leaves this way, that's different than this way. And there has to be an accounting for that difference, and there has to be an equal and opposite. When you give the system back this, okay, the system gave you this, the world gave you this into a system. The system expels this. There has to be an accounting, because the universe needs to get this back, okay, to create this back. It has to add up. So that's all this was used for in the conversation. I think it's an appropriate use of angular momentum, in the sense that there is this precise angle that you go into systems with, a vector. It'd be stupid to call it linear momentum, because it's almost redundant. Okay, it's a directional momentum. So I could say directional momentum, but again, it really I shouldn't have to fix the word, because I think it's totally appropriate for me to talk about the angle in three-dimensional space, the vector, that something's traveling. And that's essentially its angular momentum. But anyway, the reason why bikes are stable at faster speeds is because the wheels have a greater angular momentum. Now you're getting into something much more complex, in the sense that what they have is more energy. So in a sense, they have more M. E equals mc squared. Okay, so the extra energy is creating more mass in a direction. So again, we're back to this, it's sort of important. So if the gravitons are traveling, so I hate that word, in a linear path, well, obviously they're traveling in a straight line always. And again, for the purpose of the example, was that what you're doing is creating a system. So this thing comes in and it doesn't leave, like a Roach Motel. The photon goes in, it doesn't leave. It went in with this momentum. What it does is go through a completely conservative loop. So it goes one loop, stops, and obviously still has this momentum. So it goes forward that one more step again, and then goes into another loop, and then goes forward, so to speak. It doesn't lose its forward momentum by doing the loop. The loop is completely neutral in that it gets this, and then it gives this. It goes this way, and then it goes this way. All of that is conservative, but it doesn't stop the momentum it went in with. It just slows it down, so to speak. It just turns something that was moving the speed of light into something moving a lot slower. The circle is a zero. It ends up in exactly the same spot it started from the circle. And everything left over, its original momentum. It's just obviously been delayed where it would have got to this point at the speed of light if it didn't do this. But because it did this, it didn't get to this point. Okay, it took a long time because it did all of this crap. But it doesn't change the fact that this is the angular momentum. The momentum of the thing gone in hasn't changed. It retains its angular momentum. The circle is a net zero effect on its angular momentum. All right, anyway, it's directional momentum. So if the gravitons are traveling in a linear path, then they, by definition, which I don't care for that, can't have angular momentum. So again, of course they can if they go into a loop. Then they have angular momentum, right? I mean, I really don't want to argue this over and over again. So I think it's inappropriate to say that we're talking about something's angular momentum if in some portion of its travel it does a circle. That's sort of important. But again, it would be true if it did a back and forth too. If it did this, it goes this way and then back and forth, 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 and it comes back this way, back, 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 back. If I shot it into a fiber optic tube and then reflected it at the top and it came back exactly the same path, you get it? I mean, I can create lots of systems that end up being a complete neutral in terms of every bit of angular change is neutralized by an inverse, the opposite reaction. So it ends up being zero because it ends up exactly where it started. It's just that it killed a bunch of time. All right, so if the graviton is kind of, then by definition it can't have angular momentum. Well, screw you. They do, however, have linear momentum. So again, I've never even heard somebody say linear momentum. So I'm saying I just don't. I'm sorry, it just doesn't sound good. And this is a vector. So yes, well, they're all vectors. The overall linear momentum of the gravitons hitting Earth would be zero. That's just wrong. Unless you mean all of them. Yes. The entire universe is zero in its natural state. In every closed system, it's not zero. So you can't even say it for the Earth, right? Because the sun is obviously screwing with the zero. There's no zero because of the sun. There's no zero because of the moon. So And there's no zero, of course, because clearly the Earth has its own velocity. So anyway, so yes, the overall linear momentum of the gravitons hitting Earth would be zero. Well, technically they're not. I realize this might seem trivial. It's okay. I'm just saying I had this argument with Hoffaday like 5 years ago. And yeah, I think it's an anal response. I think I have to use some word that implies the fact that I'm arguing that there's an absorption of the momentum, and the only thing that really is changing is the fact that that momentum is now inside of a system, and it's still real. It still exists as forward momentum, and all it does is a weird little give and takey thing that adds up to nothing. That's a zero, that consumes no energy and produces no change. And that is something rationally considered a change in angular momentum, a potential change. But it's just a potential change because it doesn't change it, because it takes it exactly back to the zero, and it still has its velocity. When it gets to zero, it's still moving this way. All right. Give people a completely different idea of what you're arguing. But using a different word can give people a completely different idea of what you're arguing. So now we're really just talking about what words you're comfortable with. So you have a narrow view of the word angular momentum. I have a broader view that includes anything that is going to have its vector changed in some sort of, that can potentially have its vector changed in some sort of range, because that's all this is about. And I'm arguing that on the tiny scale, okay, that all of those changes are just vector changes. There is no curved linear path. Anyway, I'll read the rest. All right, so time code useless. The fact that the ball is moving in a circle means it will have an angular momentum. So you're conceding my point. However, if you added up the linear momentum at every point in the string, you'd get zero. Well, no, at every point you're going to get a different. The net product is zero. Yeah, but at every point there's a deficit or an asset in certain directions. It's giving back momentum in other directions. It's giving and taking. It goes forward, then it goes backwards. I meant add up the linear momentums at every point in the circular path. Yes, so it has to be the complete circle. You have to wait till it finishes the circle before you make a claim about what its momentum is. And when it completes the circle, you see that its momentum while in the circle was zero, but its momentum is still whatever it was going when it entered. So it didn't lose any momentum. The circle cost nothing except time. It didn't change its momentum. Yeah. I know time is connected to momentum, but it's more just velocity and distance. It's more velocity and mass. So time is almost irrelevant. I don't know what this was. This guy would like you to unblock him. Oh, okay. Well, I tried that. You have to, you're going to give me a link. You have to give me a link to a YouTube channel. I can't unblock a Google Plus account. When he commented, he must have commented from a YouTube account, I presume. So he must have one. So I need the link to the YouTube account. I couldn't find it. So at any rate, I can't find him on a list. And I can't find a YouTube account. And without the YouTube account, there's no hope. I'll be the first to say I don't understand most of the things many physicists say. All right, let's see. And then he follows that with, but. Okay. You ought to just stick with that part and say, that's probably an indication that they're talking shit. Okay, because they should be able to make it understandable. But I think in this video, you claim that there is no movement in the fields of a magnet. I claim that the movement is the same movement that there is in gravity, and that there's, like a light bulb, this was a magnet, north-south. Let's see, it's yellow and silver. You know, all that's happening is mixed stuff is going in, yellow and silver force, and it's coming out because of this 90-degree rule. Okay, so you can sort of visualize it, that if yellow force hits the yellow, it reflects. Now, if it reflects, that looks just like it went through and came out the other side, you could argue, right? So if yellow hits and it reflects, you could sort of see that as saying, yes, it's going to hit from this side and reflect too. So that'll look the same from all the sides as if it went right straight through. And if it's silver force, it's going to leave perpendicular. And in this case, for a reason, I can't specify it entirely, perpendicular doesn't mean this way or this way or this way. It generally means this way. Now, maybe magnets could be super stronger if it didn't go this way, or one of these other perpendiculars. But I'm just saying, for the purpose of the argument, let's just say it goes perpendicular this way. So you can sort of understand that if it comes in, say a silver comes in at this angle on this yellow and leaves perpendicular this direction, it would come out here. And if it comes in straight, it would come out straight out the middle. Get it? Now, if it comes in through the bottom, it goes straight through. So that's the only catch. But that you can sort of understand because all the little magnets are lined up inside of this big magnet. And so the stuff that comes in through the bottom is technically hitting the opposite of this. So this top is really silver. No, wrong way to say it. The point is just imagine that this part of the magnet, it doesn't do the perpendicular thing, it just goes straight through. But at every other angle, it does the perpendicular thing. Okay, and so you don't even need to think about the inside of the magnet. You can just kind of go with the colors on the outside and sort of understand that all the silver is bouncing off of the silver. All the yellow over here is coming out here somewhere, some angle. Some of it's coming out like right here, yellow, 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 yellow. But most of it's coming out here, at the tip, towards the end. All right, it's a lot of explanation. I mean, the previous video said all this stuff. So see the previous video. All right, movement in the field of the magnet. Yes, okay. So hours later, I'm watching this PBS short, and he was saying the opposite. Now, what he's saying in the video is just, way out there shit. Not even close. But anyway, maybe 15 minutes long. Is he talking about the same thing you were talking about? Well, he's talking about the same thing in the sense that, as I've always stated, it's like the two-slit experiment. We'll go back to that. They think the photon is Heisenberging, okay? So they think the photon doesn't know where it is, and it has a probability thing, and it's all confused. And the reality is the slits are Heisenberging. The slits are the things full of energy, full of noise, full of vibrations, full of jitter and movement. So it's the matter that carries the wave. Okay, the matter is the thing oscillating, you could say. Brownian motion. I mean, they already know it exists, and here they're pretending they don't know this is what matter does. And you can sort of see intuitively, right? When you make magnets cold, they work better. Why would that be? You know, and so you can sort of understand that this motion is the stuff in the way. It's not helping, it's hurting. Okay, it's messing the game up. But this is where all the probability comes from, is where in this jitter does the straight photon, the dead straight photon, is heading for jitter. And the probability happens based on where is it going to be jittering at the moment the photon goes through here. So this thing is bouncing as the photon's going through. So you can see that probabilistically there's going to be odds to hitting certain positions and having an effect. So that's my argument. So that's what's happening inside the atoms. The atoms are jittering the electrons. And so even when you line up the magnet, still got all of this crap going on inside of it. But you know, I'll play the PBS video because it just gets into so many preposterous things. But that's what I'm arguing, though. Fundamentally, they don't understand polarization. They don't understand charge. And they sorry. Joking. I really don't do that often. But I don't talk. All right. Just a minute. Okay. Almost there. Somebody sent me coffee. I haven't had coffee in like 2 years. No, it's very nice. Nice treat. Anyway. All right. So they don't understand that. Well, I'll say it in the video. I mean, it's there to make fun of. I mean, so to speak, because they have no clue. They're claiming they know, and they have no clue. And so it's just so obvious. We know they don't have a clue. That's why they're calling it a virtual photon. They have no clue where the energy comes from. They make up this story about all this stuff happening, but they don't account for any of it because they have no way to account for the movement, the energy. They have no source of energy. That's why they have to blame everything on a virtual thing, because they can't make it real, because they can't account for where it came from, because they don't understand that magnetism is just filtered gravity. And they don't know that gravity is a real force. I mean, they're so far from getting it right. And yet they're claiming their predictions are insanely accurate, and they have insanely big, huge piles of evidence proving. And we've already heard all that, right? They think the Young experiment proved light was a wave. They think the single slit experiment, which looks nothing like water waves, proves, okay, light's a wave. They keep talking about what they've proven. They've proven nothing. They can't even figure out that the mirror in a interferometer can't possibly be doing what they say it is. You know, the beam splitter isn't really creating two equal beams. They can't even figure that out. And they're telling you what they have proven. All right, so I did watch most of this, but we'll do it again. Just because it's so arrogant. So I probably should have given him the what do I call it? The ass wipe award, the the whatever it is award. Yeah, he's probably going to win. You know, I'll probably do that at the end of the week. I'll probably try to do it the same day every week. So whatever day that was, Friday or something like that anyway. But he should win.
We have the theories of quantum physics truly represent the underlying workings of reality.
So again, we know what reality is. We've got all this underlying workings all down. We've figured it all out. They haven't got clue one, and they don't have proof one, and they don't have a theory that makes any sense at all. They got particles all over the place. They got bent space with particles, and the particles aren't really particles. They're wavicles, and then they're not even that. You know, they're anti-particles. There's any of this. I mean, they have nothing but rubbish, gibberish, miles and miles of gibberish.
Quantum field theory is notoriously complicated, built from...
Right, so he said, well, it's complicated. It's way over your head, and you can't understand it. I can understand nuclear physics. I can understand a nuclear bomb. They can draw a nice picture of a nuclear bomb and sort of explain it to you, you know, about how they're going to create this implosion. You know, they put a bunch of TNT, you know, around a very dense hunk of uranium, and they're going to basically, the TNT is going to push the uranium into the uranium, which is basically going to shoot a bunch of neutrons into the other uranium atoms and cause a chain reaction, and then the whole thing is going to explode. So they first create an explosion pushing in to create high pressure to shove a bunch of neutrons into the uranium so it explodes out. They can draw a picture of it. Everybody can understand it. Rocket science, they can draw a picture of the valves and the tubes and the stuff, and we can understand it. They can't draw a picture of any of this nonsense. They can't even give the photons, the force carriers, they can't give them a real existence. Because again, they're stuck with this stupid notion. Well, the magnet creates things moving the speed of light like photons, and they hit something and it moves towards it. See, they can't make that make sense, and they know it. Because they can't account for where it came from. They didn't convert it. They didn't follow the conservation laws, which say if you're going to say something moved, you have to explain where the force came from. You know, and they just pretend, well, our new science doesn't need to do all that old-fashioned Newtonian conservation crap, because we can just call things virtual, or we can just create space geometry, and we don't have to account for where the energy comes from. Cop-out and bullshit. These are the same people that will tell you dark matter is proven because it fixed our broken math. Yeah, they'll say that. The proof of dark matter is the fact that our math was broken without it. So it's like saying I walk into court, I have no clue how I can get out of this. I proposed that the Invisible Man committed the crime, not me, and that he hid my DNA and he stole my fingerprints and did all that. And I get acquitted, and I say, I obviously got acquitted because the Invisible Man must be the truth, because the dumb jury bought it. Yeah, the idiots bought it. So that must be the truth, right? No, it's not the truth.
Mind-bendingly abstract mathematics. Could it be the...
So again, why don't you show us some of this mind-bendingly abstract mathematics? So you're not doing 2 + 2. You're not doing algebra, like, you know, side angle side. You're doing what? Irrational numbers in pseudo sets, convoluted in multi-dimensional fibble-fabble. And you're saying that's what reality is.
The underlying rules that govern reality are really so far from human intuition.
Yeah, just more horse shit. No. We see every bit, you know, human intuition is based on the fact that we do 10 million experiments every day. Every day we do a ton of physics experiments, and they all have rules. No, the batteries never just fly off my desk and fly around the room with magical powers or energy. Never happens. There has to be real reasons, real forces. Earthquakes have to travel through the ground, and they have to, everything follows these rules. So here we are, he's saying basically, no, the underlying physics doesn't follow any of these rules that are common to everything we can possibly see with telescopes and microscopes and with our own senses. None of this magic woo. And the only place this magic woo exists are the places we can't see. Now, isn't that convenient?
Or a physicist just showing off.
No, you're just sticking your fingers in your own asses and then sharing, smell mine. Oh, love you. You're just way up each other's asses. And that's it. You're not up my ass. You're not impressing me. I see right fucking through your bullshit. You're a bunch of bullshitters.
For better or worse, the physicists are definitely on the right track.
Now, definitely on the right track, because our evidence is getting clearer and clearer. Our experiments are more and more obvious. So let's recognize again, they haven't even conceded the Eddington experiment was rubbish. They can't concede that their perception of how interferometers works is a little bit screwed up. And then when you get to the double and single slit experiments, it's all bullshit. No explanation for how come Huygens creates two waves when there's one slit, and yet it only creates two waves when there's two slits. Obviously, it's supposed to create four. No consistency in their use of any of these mechanical gimmicks, and it's just all rubbish. And they call that proof. So understand, every time he says we've proven, or we have evidence, or we have experiments, that's what he's talking about. Experiments just as bad as Eddington, just as bad as the double slit, just as bad as the single slit, just as bad as the interferometer. Stuff they don't understand how those simple experiments work, and yet they're going to tell you, that gluons are, sticking quarks together. They have no clue.
We know this because the predictions of quantum field theory stand up to experimental test time and time again.
Complete lie bullshit. No experiments. What experiments? Where? Where did this happen? When did this happen? What hard experiments have you ever done demonstrating any of your wacky, silly, I mean, beyond the silly, simple predictions, right? We know that the two slit experiment, we know we get a pattern. So we know there's a phenomenon. And so they're just, so if you want to say, I predict that when you use aluminum instead of steel slits, or you do that obviously you get the same pattern. I mean, those aren't really predictions. Predicting that vibrating stuff causes interference isn't much of a prediction. But let's see another one example, right? Is this radar experiment where they do the radar thing with the two slits. And as I've explained, you can explain that as being just jamming. Nothing to do with any interference. Yes, it creates exactly the same result as interference would, but it's just a fact that it would create exactly the same result. It's a perfectly viable counter argument. Have they proven that can't be true? No. So have they proven their case? Not even close to proof. No big giant pile of evidence. Again, just he's talking as if the evidence is overwhelming, like they have fossilized bones, and they have DNA, and they have geologicals, and they have radioactive decay, and they have no list of evidence. And that's why they're not showing any of it, because their evidence is obtuse and tiny.
Quantum field theory describes a universe filled with different quantum fields in which...
Right, just nonsense, right? So again, the only thing there is in the universe is forces moving this dead straight lines and vibrating matter. That's it. There are no fields. There's forces and matter. Matter's moving because it's getting hit by forces. And then other forces go through it while it's moving, and those forces get disturbed. They think the force created the disturbance. Yeah, because they're stupid.
Particles are excitations, quantized vibrations. We've talked about QFT many times before, starting with the very first quantum field theory, quantum electrodynamics. QED.
Yeah, that's right. QED was when it was still simple. It was just about photons hitting electrons, not complicated, not full of all this woo.
Talks about the electromagnetic field, whose excitations give us the photon.
Yeah, so and again, it doesn't talk about any electromagnetic field. It just talks about the interaction between photons and electrons. Field smealed.
The calculations of QED describe how this field interacts with charged particles to give us the electromagnetic field.
Yeah, that's right. None of this happens. So whatever this is, nothing's doing this crap. So it's just a complete fake animation, has nothing to do with the reality. The reality is there's electrons in static positions. Okay, everything's rigid and it's all vibrating with tension because it's all held together by forces hitting these little things, creating pressure.
Which binds electrons to atoms.
Yes, well, again, electrons are bound to atoms, not by some mysterious thing. They're bound to it by the fact that they're a filter of the gravity. And when they filter the gravity, they convert into magnetism, and that's charge, essentially.
To molecules, and therefore, allows you to exist. QED is a much deeper and more complicated description of electromagnetism.
Bullshit. It's a simpler description. So, QED was before they created wavicles.
And the simple opposite charges attract, like charges repel of classical electrodynamics. But how do we know it's right? Well, because it makes some predictions that clash with the classical theory, and those predictions are the most precisely tested and thoroughly verified in all of physics.
Okay, so just a preposterous statement. Put up, shithead. Give me the list of all this evidence. So again, just absolutely zero evidence provided. The most proven facts in the history of mankind is what he's basically saying. And it's not even close to a proven fact. It's not even, they don't even have anything beyond a theory. They have no confirming evidence, zero real evidence. And yet they talk as if, like I said, they've proven evolution or something. Not even close to the volume of evidence that proves evolution. Nothing even, it's silly to even compare the two. This is such a propaganda pile of crap. It's propaganda. Where does he get the authority to say something that silly? I have all this proof. I won't show you any of it, though. But I have it. I have a ton of proof. Volumes and volumes and books this high and letter documents. And I have so much fucking proof. And I won't show you a single bit of it. Why? Because it's incomprehensible mush.
Today we're going to talk about the theory and experiments behind one of these tests.
And another pile of crap. He's not going to talk about any fucking experiment. He's just going to show a bunch of silly pictures and talk a bunch of shit that they haven't demonstrated or they have no idea how the thing works.
Measuring the G factor, or in simple English, measuring the anomalous magnetic dipole moment of the electron.
Okay, so again, this dipole moment is an idea of that. Let's say if you had a magnet and it would be moving, there would be a moment when it's looking right at you. Oh, it's looking at me. That would be called like its dipole moment. It's when the pole is at this moment looking right at you. Now, electrons do not have a dipole moment because electrons aren't a dipole. They're not a magnet. They're one half of the magnet. They're this silver thing or they're this yellow thing. They are not a yellow and silver thing. That's why they have a negative charge, is because they're one half of it. They're the negative half, and the proton is the positive half. I don't know how they could get this so wrong. I mean, to think an electron is a magnet is just idiotic.
Okay, first up, what on earth did I just say?
Yeah,
What
bullshit.
is the anomalous magnetic dipole moment? Well, it's just like the regular magnetic dipole moment, but more anomalous. Okay, not helpful. Let's break down this magnetic dipole moment thing. Consider a bar magnet. It has a
All right, this is fantastic because this is such a bullshit illustration. So he thinks this bar magnet is an electron, which not even close. And so this is what the guy is talking about in the comment. Here he's showing this magnet with all this stuff moving through it. Absolutely no experimental evidence demonstrating anything is moving in the field at all around a magnet. You'll never be able to prove any kind of movement, any kind of flow, any kind of anything. The magnet just sits there. And I can put little tiny little sample things around here and it won't do a damn thing. It won't move in any current. It's just a pile of crap.
Dipole magnetic field, basically meaning it has a north and south pole. Dipole, two poles.
Right. And because they just don't understand. See, so clearly you can look at that and just say, that's an energy thing. Where'd the energy come from? How is this magnet that doesn't get any lighter? It could sit here for 1 billion years, right? A magnet. It's not a battery, it's a magnet now. And it's doing that the whole time. It's where's the energy come from? Where's the fuel? What's being converted? Where's the energy come from? The energy has to be in one place and you move it through some other system and then you move it to another system. Energy is always conserved. So explain where the energy comes from. What fuel is being burned? They don't have any explanation. This is all just horse shit.
If we put a bar magnet in a second external magnetic field, it'll feel a torque, a force causing it to rotate to align with that field.
Right, so now they're drawing this kind of thing, like this has something to do. So there's no second magnet in here. There's no demonstration of what they're talking about. This is just more animation fun that doesn't have anything to do with anything. And as I explained in the previous video, the reason why the magnet lines up is because it's doing the compass thing. Okay, when it's this way, it goes yellow, silver. So this goes yellow, silver. And then as it bends here, right, it's feeling still very strong yellow to silver pressure, but it's also feeling the silver is feeling an attraction to the yellow down here. It can sense it now. So it's bending to try to go to the silver yellow here. And so that's all that's happening. It just bends around like that. There's no current. There's no flipping for any other reason than the fact that as you change the amount of exposure, you change the strength of the exposure, the distance. It's just a simple rule that there's more tension on the other end of the magnet. But electrons aren't a freaking magnet. Electrons don't do that.
The tendency of a dipole magnet to rotate in an external magnet.
So a dipole magnet, there's no other kind of magnet. Okay, let's understand. There's no other kind of magnet. A magnet is by definition something with two poles, two dipole. And so there's only two kinds of things. There's dipoles and monopoles. This is a monopole. This is a monopole. Electrons is a monopole. Proton is a monopole. There's no magnetic monopole. The monopole by its obvious is a charge. It's only one thing. It's only one half of the magnet. It's an N or an S or a plus and a minus. That's all it can be. It's charged.
Magnetic field is its magnetic dipole moment. Anything with a dipole magnetic field has a magnetic dipole moment. It's basically
so again, just more talk. Okay, so atoms can have a dipole moment because atoms are basically they can be proton strong at one end, in the sense the proton can be a little uneven with the balance of its electrons. So we can have more electrons on this side of it than electrons on that side, essentially meaning that there's a polarization. Okay, so it might be silver and then a little bit of yellow. So it might be a weak magnet. You know, the strongest magnet is 50-50, and you cut it, you can have a thinner and thinner percentage. But anyway, and so that atom can spin and have a moment when it's looking at you. Moment, moment, moment. All right. But all the rest of this crap can't do that. Now, nucleuses of atoms can also have a moment, because they have electrons and protons in them, essentially because of the neutron. The neutron is essentially the neutron is the perfect example of something that has a dipole moment, because the neutron has an electron and a proton side, and that's all it has. It's really a magnet. They think it doesn't have a charge, right? Because it has both ends. So it has a plus and a minus, which equals nothing. But it really does have a plus and a minus. It's not nothing. It's a magnet. The neutron is the perfect magnet. It's a dipole because it contains a proton and an electron. I mean, it's so obvious, people.
A measure of how much it would interact with an external magnetic field if one existed.
Right. Now, so this diagram is just complete horseshit. The virtual photons, the Maxwell equations will describe this as lines of force coming out radially. So even if you kept this idiotic loopy stuff, what the math will tell you is the force goes directly perpendicular to the curved line. So if you took one of those curved lines, the force would be the perpendicular line off of that. So the point is the real force vectors are straight lines that go radially out from the magnet. That's the real lines of force. These lines are a representation of how the magnets will line up, how the compasses will perceive the field. But the real Maxwell equations, the real math, really understands that the force is perpendicular to those lines. The force comes out, and the force is felt based on so the compass needle turns. And what you can sort of understand is it turns to balance itself to the magnetic field. So wherever the magnet is positioned here, there's a certain amount of attraction to one end and a certain amount of repulsion and attraction to the other end from the other end. And the point is this angle is basically a reflection of the net effect of the entire magnetic field. And the point is this perpendicular line is basically saying that's how the force is radiating from the magnet. So the force radiates like light from a light bulb. So this illustration is complete rubbish. The virtual photons that they talk about are not doing this thing. They know they're radially shooting out. That's the force carrier. The force carrier, if they drew the virtual photons, they'd have to draw them as straight lines coming out of the magnet, because that's what they're doing mathematically. So this is such a lie.
Let's talk about this dipole thing a bit more. Magnetic fields are produced by moving electric charges.
So again, wrong assumption. You can produce magnetism. Okay, you can make a magnet by shooting electricity through a wire. You can actually cause the atoms to line up. Okay, so there's a bunch of, like, especially in iron and metals, right? We already know this, that you can magnetize them. When you shoot electricity through them, what you're basically doing is taking all the noise out. As funny as that sounds, but that's the way it works. Electricity, let's see, what's a good analogy? I'm trying to think, like a strong wind will cause the windmill to point towards the wind. But a weak wind, the windmill can be the wrong direction. So once you put electricity through the atoms, they have to become more efficient. They can't be wobbling anymore. So they'll start to get very straight and they start to get very efficient. But in the process of getting very straight to carry the current, that's when they become magnets. So the atoms start lining up. So instead of the atoms being like this, all right, when you put electricity through the metal, the atoms straighten up because they have to carry the fluid, the force, the electricity. And so all of them start to line up. And that's why they become a magnet. So when they line up, they become a magnet. And that's when the magnet starts filtering the gravity thing. It's doing the same thing as a regular magnet. It starts to filter what goes through it and create magnetism. Now, they become a weak magnet, not a really strong one. That's why they have to loop the wire around and around and around and around, is they have to create a lot of magnets, a lot of square feet of magnet, essentially, with the current. They have to align a lot of atoms to create more magnetism. And that's why when they shove a steel core inside of the loop of wire, then they have even more iron to line up. But that's all they're doing. They're just trying to get things that are doing this crap, you know, all mixed up. And they're trying to get them to do this crap. Line up, line up. That's, like I said, back to the argument, right? When you make something cold, it stops moving, right? It's doing this when it's hot, and it's cold, cold, cold. It stops moving. And if you stop moving it when everything's lined up, yeah, you make a really good magnet. You make a superconductor because now you can get lots of electricity through it because it doesn't have these inefficiencies. This vibrating makes for very poor, if you think of it as lightning bolts or even water, it just makes for very poor hose function if the hoses don't line up. Then the water doesn't go through them very well. I don't know what perfect analogy there is, but the more aligned they are, the more magnetism they can create, and the more efficiently they can carry voltage, current. So that's how it really is. Their nonsense is just as it sounds, nonsense. What I just told you is simple and makes a ton of sense.
A perfect dipole field is produced by charges moving in circles.
Okay, so he's again drawing all this stuff, and you don't need any of this movement crap. And again, the electricity isn't doing that. The electricity is just lining up the atoms. It's just taking stuff that can't be magnetism because it's shooting force in different directions. It's not segregating, right? It's not making all the yellow stuff go out this way and all the silver stuff go out this way when they're like this. They have to be lined up, and then all the silver and all the yellow. But none of this crap is happening. Just all rubbish.
Example, a loop of wire with an electric current, or the planet Earth with its dynamo core.
Dynamo core. Now, does that sound like anything real? Dynamo core. Now, as I've explained, the reason why the Earth has any energy in it is all because gravity pushed it in. So all the energy in the side of the Earth has all of that pressure, and it's all in the form of pressure. That's what the heat is, was put there by gravity. That's where the energy came from. The force they think is some sort of geometry. You know, the force they don't think of as real.
But in the case of a bar magnet, the source of its magnetic field is a bit weirder.
Okay, well, in the case of the bar magnet, see, so they're trying to make somehow like the electric magnet and the bar magnet are two different kinds of magnet. There's only one kind of magnetism. It's created by one thing, aligning up atoms. That's how you create magnetism. You have to take atoms that have poles, that is, that atoms that aren't perfectly round, and you have to line them all up with the same fat end one way and small end the other way, or however you want to look at it. Whatever the shape is of the atom, whatever its imbalance is, the imbalances have to all be symmetrical. And then you have magnetism. Then you have a magnet that can filter force into magnetism.
It mostly comes from the summed dipole magnetic fields.
The summed dipole magnetic field. So again, so the magnetism comes from the magnetism, is what he just frickin' said, which is a completely empty, vacuous, dark matter bullshit answer. The magnetism comes from the magnetism
Of individual electrons in the outer shells of its atoms. And those electron dipole fields are indeed very weird.
Yeah, so again, the weird dipole magic electrons flippity floppity blah 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 blah. Bullshit, all bullshit.
As we'll see, their nature is predicted by quantum theory, measure electron.
So again, predicted, nothing, all this is just horseshit. This is all just crap. When they use this word predicted or proved, none of that crap happened.
Magnetic moments, and you verify your quantum picture of reality. Electromagnetic fields.
They verified nothing, they predicted nothing, and they proved nothing. They just have a silly story, and they couldn't think of anything better, and then they painted it on a bandwagon. They painted their silly answer on a bandwagon, and they all jumped on top of the silly answer bandwagon, and that's all that happened here. And once they've invested in this bandwagon, they don't want to find out that, oh, it's all horseshit and you have to get a new wagon.
Intuitive if you think of them as tiny balls of rotating electric charge.
Okay, tiny balls of rotating electric charge, which they have no explanation for what any of that shit is. So again, there is no rotating electric charge. Understand, the electron, okay, is basically just saying, when yellow force hits me, I reflect it. When silver force hits me, I eject it perpendicularly. That's all it's doing. And the proton is doing the same thing. It's saying, when silver force hits me, I reflect it. When yellow force hits me, I reject it perpendicularly. That's all the two charges are doing, and that's all the magnet is doing.
Except electrons aren't balls, and they aren't really rotating.
So again, he doesn't know any of this stuff. They can't see an electron. So just understand, electrons, you can't capture an electron. You can't do any of this stuff, because it's basically just sitting there saying, I will be reflected by yellow things hitting me. Okay, so when a yellow thing hits, I'm going to move this way. And when a silver thing hits me, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to eject it. Technically, it might move, but it doesn't move as much, obviously, because it's taking momentum this way and getting rid of the momentum this way. So there's a change in the vector, and I don't want to get into all that crap, but it doesn't matter really. And so in reality, in every location in space, it's almost impossible that there can be a place, okay, that you just randomly fall into in space where there isn't an unevenness in the pressure. That is, you don't have a little more yellow coming this way than you have this way, and that would move the electron. So the only place it can really stay in a position is when you put a proton in there. And now you can lock it into a position with other electrons. But you have to lock it into a position. And even when you have it locked, any vibration in any one of the pieces is a vibration it will also experience. So any vibration in the atom, any tugging or pulling by any moons or other objects, it all vibrates. And that's essentially, look, the solar system is doing that too. The moon and the earth and the sun are all in tension, and they all are vibrating. They're all moving a little bit erratically.
As far as we know, electrons are point-like. They have no size.
They're not point-like. They have no size. I mean, doesn't that all sound like horseshit to you? We know photons crash right into the bastards. Really easy to hit the damn things. Okay, I mean, really hard to hit the nucleus. Really easy to hit the electrons. And yet they're saying they're tiny, they're invisible, they're not possible to hit. Blah, blah, blah. Obviously wrong answer. We can hit electrons with other electrons. They obviously have to have some sort of substantial size. So this is just horseshit. I mean, it can be deconstructed by a ton of experimental evidence that basically indicates that's a pile of crap. Electrons have to be rather substantial in their size, or we couldn't hit them.
And it doesn't really make sense to think of an infinitesimal.
Yes, it doesn't make sense to think of an infinitesimal. You just said it. It doesn't make any sense, and it's completely inconsistent with every freaking experiment known to mankind. There would have never been a television. There would have never been anything if your theory of electrons were true. If electrons were these tiny, infinitesimal, non-matter, non-massive things, then there's no freaking way they could make an image on a screen. There's no way they could stimulate phosphorus to eject photons.
Decimal point as rotating. Nonetheless, electrons do have a sort of intrinsic angular momentum.
So here we go, an intrinsic angular momentum, which is okay for him to say. And what they have is an intrinsic quality of being in the universe, and the universe is hot. And it's hot with gravity. Gravity is heat. That's why the Earth inside is hot, because the inside of the Earth is basically reflecting the fact that gravity is heat. It's like infrared radiation. It's a form of radiation. It makes things hot. So everything is wobbling in it. That's why there's Brownian motion. The whole reason why we can't make microscopes that can see smaller and smaller is because everything's moving too frickin' much. That's why we can't make a supersonic microscope. It's because the shit's doing this. We can't move the microscope the same way the stuff's moving, so you can't see it. Everything just turns into this. Shit.
Fundamental quantum spin that is as intrinsic as mass and charge.
Yes, it's intrinsic as mass and charge. Nothing like that's the truth, right? Spin isn't as intrinsic. It isn't as in fundamental. There really isn't any hugely important quality it produces. It doesn't produce something like the difference between plus and minus electrodes. It doesn't produce anything as interesting as cathode and anode. It doesn't do anything dramatic in any way whatsoever, this stupid little spin quality. There's nothing intrinsic or fundamental about it. It's just stupid, obtuse mathematical rubbish.
Despite not being the same as classical rotation, this quantum spin does grant electrons a dipole magnetic field.
Okay, a dipole magnetic field for an electron. There's no evidence an electron is a magnet. There's no evidence that it has two poles, that it has a plus and a minus or a north and a south. Nothing, nowhere, ever is there any evidence that it has any of those qualities whatsoever. That's the whole reason why they made anti-electrons. Why would you make an anti-electron if the electron was already a magnet and had two poles? Because wouldn't it be like the anti-electron would be just, well, this is yellow and silver, and the anti-electrician is silver and yellow. Wouldn't the anti-electron be irrelevant then? Wouldn't it just be, oh, okay, it's an upside down electron? It can't make any sense. This is such rubbish. Oh, God, I'm only 4 minutes into this crap. All right, let's see if there's any comments. I'm sick of listening to that shithead. I hate this guy. I hate him. It's crap physics. Lisbeth retracted her comment. All right, Dick. Let's see what Dick. Woodman. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think it's more like Driftwood Man. Just because the atom in some solids are arranged in a very ordered way, lattice. Yes, again, that doesn't matter if the atoms aren't polar. So again, the atom has to have an imbalance in it. If it's not an imbalanced atom, then it's like there's no polarization. Okay, so it's not silver and yellow. It's just silver or yellow. It doesn't do any, it's just a mixture of silver and yellow. So it can't be a magnet then. And you can't pile them on top of each other, and you can't magnify the effect. So first you have to have a material that's polarizable, like metals. And just because molecules are systems of tension, atoms themselves are in tension. The connection between an atom and an atom, okay, is a much weaker connection than the electrons to the protons in the nucleus. So let's understand it's just levels of strength of that tension. Sharing an electron is a lot weaker than electron to proton tension and electron on electron tension. All right. Doesn't explain the double slit pattern. Says you. Of course it can. I'm just saying all the pattern is a reoccurring angular change. So all you're saying is a photon goes in of a given energy, that is frequency. It moves an electron a specific amount of distance, and that movement represents essentially a change in the angular momentum, Feynman diagram, a change in the angular momentum of the photon leaving. So the photon went in this way. It changes its angular momentum based on how the electron, what angular momentum the electron absorbed by being hit. Not that complicated. And of course that could have a pattern. So screw you, Dick. Well, it was a question. He put a question mark on a statement. Doesn't explain the double slit pattern, question mark. Just because molecules are systems of tension doesn't explain the double slit pattern, question mark. That's not a question. I recall when you spoke about the size of photons and how it might mean the ratio of the two force bits aren't equal. It doesn't matter. The silver force could be 5 times bigger than the yellow force bits. We wouldn't have a way of detecting any of those differences because it would just mean that everything else was different also. So I'm just saying it just doesn't matter. We know that their effect, their net effect, is proportional and equal. So I would logically argue that they're not uneven. But anyway, so Dick again. Are there any physicists that are honest and simply say we don't really know? No, of course they don't. They do exactly the opposite, aren't they? I'm just saying they all talk like this. We have proven it. Einstein was proven correct. Relativity's been proven 4 million times. They all say it. And then when you force them to try to produce some evidence, they're like a Pyrrho and they show you crap, absolute crap. All right, do you eat your farts? So I've seen that before. Adrian seems like a reasonable person name, and you think they would have a little more class than that. But apparently not. I hate this stupid thing. I have to always, just to get rid of these assholes, I have to move my image. It's just sort of annoying. All right. J. Ash, would it be possible to measure the pressure between magnets to get the idea of what the ratio is? Well, of course you can measure it. But the point is magnets aren't pure. So not every atom in this, say if this was a magnet, only a percentage of the atoms in the magnet are actually lined up properly. So the density of the magnetic quality, they give it an N number, N52, N33, N something. And it tells you basically how strong the magnet is for the density of the material. But I don't want to get into that kind of, I don't think we need to get into how, but I'm just saying, so yes, most magnets are it's not, it's only a percentage of the magnet is actually a magnet. The rest is noise. It is imperfect. They could be better if they could get every atom to line up. All right. Let's see. Have they tried using different materials for the walls in the double slit experiment? Not in any scientific way. So I'm sure, obviously, I'm going to be using these tiny pieces of film. Okay, I mean, they're just film. I mean, it's just little sheets of plastic with a tiny slit in it. You know, that's just, you know, there's no cutout of the plastic. It's just a pigment. So it's just pigment that's going to be creating the pattern. So there's lots of different ways. But yeah, there's been no clinical, here we're doing the experiment, we're going to try it all these different ways with different thicknesses and different materials, and we'll show you how each pattern is subtly different. Nobody's ever done that I've been able to find. You keep asking where the energy comes from. I keep asserting that there's absolutely no conservational, they have never fulfilled their obligation to explain what they converted to gain the energy. It always requires a conversion. You can never have energy without converting one thing into another thing. All right. It already existed by virtue of the fact that they were separated from each other. So you're what? You're a rope theory fan? There's rubber bands tying everything together. I'm arguing for a rational explanation from conventional physics. Now, conventional physics doesn't believe in ropes and all of that crap. I've never heard a real physicist say magnets push together because there's rubber bands that got pulled apart. I've never heard anything like that, jackass. Look up gravitational potential energy. Again, it's just absolute nonsense. There's no, the potential energy was created by the compression of the earth, the pressure. You can't use the energy gravity put in and say, there's the energy gravity uses. You understand how stupid you just said? I mean, you're basically just saying that the pressure gravity created is the pressure that makes gravity. You can't do that. It's a function of the relative height. More bullshit, just an absolute bullshit statement that is not explaining why thing A moves towards thing B and vice versa. You're not explaining, if I want to move it, I have to put a rocket engine on it. If I want to move it, my hand has to grab it, move it. Something has to move it. There has to be energy, force. You can't just say it happens. And that's all they're doing for both gravity and magnetism. A non-existent energy source, virtual energy, makes it happen. The electron is a monopole, question mark. Yes, that's what charge is. Charge is the two monopoles, plus, minus. Those are the two monopoles. Are you serious? Question mark. Yes, it works, retard. That totally contradicts the idea of molecules being systems of tension. How so, dumbass? It doesn't contradict it at all. It simply says quite obviously that, as I've explained on the website that you obviously can't be bothered going to, or the many videos, yeah, there's no point in me explaining atoms again. But clearly, if I have something here that's, okay, this is yellow, you can see it. Let's say this was yellow, and the force reflects off yellow. Yellow force reflects. You can see it just bounce forever here. And if I brought them closer together, it would bounce even faster and create more and more pressure. That's repulsion. Now, if this was silver and this is yellow, and as explained, the force is going to leave perpendicular. Well, then you can sort of understand that the silver force hits and it goes out. And then the yellow force hits the silver thing and it goes out. So no pressure here. So the external pressure pushes them together. Duh. How is that not consistent with tension holding atoms together? No, it's perfectly consistent. It explains exactly why they are held together. You might as well say water is a magnet because of surface tension. Fuck you. It has nothing to do with what I've said or how I've said it. So screw you till dead, fucker. I mean, either quote me and pay some attention. I mean, this is physics, you know. So, I mean, clearly you just don't want to do any research. You don't want to pay any fucking attention. That's fine. But then just fuck off. Because I've explained this shit over and over again. So don't tell me what I can't explain or what I haven't explained, because you're just talking out of your ass, jackass. Because I have really good explanations, you stupid shit. Okay, so then he says, that's not true. That's really ignorant. Okay, so just sit there and say, that's not true in a comment section. That's stupid. If anything, they cause them to wiggle even more because the electricity is crashing into the atoms just as often as it passes through. Well, it's not. The electricity is flowing through the electrons between the electron pressure. All right. So in a sense, it's forcing them to expand in their, that's what voltage is. It's more pressure. So it's putting more pressure on the electrons. And the argument is that as you pressurize that system, you start to lose all the wiggle room. So you don't understand that? Fine. I'm saying that makes perfectly good sense to me. All right. Even more because electricity is causing atoms to just, no. The electricity is moving through very precise paths. Okay. So you're wrong. Just like light goes through precise paths going through glass. It's consistently takes 40% longer to go through the glass. Some of the light doesn't go through in 5% of time, or 2% slower, or 10% slower. No, all the photons go 40% slower. It's very precise pathways that the photons take through a piece of glass. And electricity is doing the same thing when it's going through a metal, fuckhead. That's why there is resistance. Resistance just has to do with the fact that in any system, like with the magnets, you have some things that don't line up. And if they don't line up, then stuff gets converted into, you know, stuff going that way. And then it gets released as infrared radiation or some other kind of radiation. The pressure leaks out of the conductor, so to speak. So resistance is just a byproduct of heat. You realize that heat is vibrations? Question mark. Well, I said it about 7,000 times, fuckhead. But why do things vibrate? Oh, because they're getting hit, jackass. They don't vibrate on their own, you know. Nothing does this for free. It doesn't do this for free. Forces make it do this, shithead. Forces are the heat. Okay. Yeah, yours is simpler, but to a fault, don't you think? How so is it a fault? It unifies all of physics. It explains the nuclear interactions. It explains magnetism and explains gravity. Their theory doesn't even come close to doing any of that shit, and it does it with a dirt simple mechanism. So, yeah, no, I don't think it's a fault, shithead. I think it's a gigantic asset. Because maybe you explain the bigger pieces more coherently, but you beg a lot more. Like what, ass fucking wipe? Dick shit fucker. Yeah. I'm saying the details matter too. Yeah, right. I'm providing details. They don't have any detail for where the energy comes from to smash the earth into the fucking goddamn sun. They give you no detail about where the energy comes from for two magnets to smash together or two magnets to repel. They give you zero details. They give you virtual photons and bent geometry, for fuck's sake. And you're telling me I'm lacking details? Fuck you. They don't tell you the details. Like, how does the interferometer, okay, Does the interferometer make two separate photons traveling different paths interfere with each other? Because I didn't learn that in quantum mechanics. I didn't hear about how you can make two different photons interfere with each other. Where is that in quantum mechanics? I thought quantum mechanics was one photon goes in, it turns into two wavicles, they interfere with each other, and then it turns into a single photon again. Where did this fucking interferometer for fucking crap come from? Would the interferometer work if I sent single photons into it? Does it mean that one photon goes in, the wavicle travels both paths, and then it combines into one photon again? Is that what the beam splitter does? Where's your consistency? Where's your details? Your theory is fucking shit, jackass. Your Pope is a fucking child molester, a fact molester. Fucker. I don't think they explain details. Yes, you're correct, Sid. No details. No details about how you convert 3 solar masses into bent space so you can hear some dopey wave. No detail about how that possibly could happen. God, people are so full of shit. Well, like I was saying earlier, yeah, you're already, I'm done, fuckhead, you rude prick. I don't get how he actually explains the double slit pattern. Again, I don't have to explain it. I just have to explain how their explanation is shit. But I am offering you a counter argument, a simple one that seems kind of logical to I think anybody. You make the hole smaller, the odds of getting close to the surface seems like it increases, right? Can you figure that out, Jack Witt? That if I make this space smaller and smaller and smaller, the odds that one of the photons is going to hit near the surface go way the fuck up as I make this smaller and smaller. Like when it's this wide, it's only 1 photon in a million. And when it's this wide, it's only 1 photon in 10,000. But when I get really close, 50% of the photons are right next to the surface. Right, Jack fucking ass? Is that beyond your scope of comprehension, shit for brain? Stupid cunt. Let's see. He criticized, his criticisms are great and all, but then it's still important. Well, again, I've given you all kinds of possible explanations. We can't see the photons, right? But I've explained to you how electrons are under pressure, tension. And that tension changes when you move slits together. There's force being communicated between the electrons on one side of the slit and the electrons on the other side of the slit, right? You understand they repel each other, right? Natively. And all the atoms on both surfaces, right? The atoms aren't like a piece of steel, okay, or plastic or pigment or anything. Any atom isn't a flat thing. An atom is electrons and then a nucleus with a bunch of empty space, remember? And so they don't have a flat surface. They have a bulgy surface. And you do understand that, well, if there's electrons on the atom over here, and there's electrons on the atom over here, when you start smashing them together, wouldn't those electrons kind of go smushy? I mean, they're repelling each other, so they're kind of like saying, I don't really want to go out here anymore because I feel tension out here. So they start to smush in a little bit and change their path, right? So that would change the angle the light would leave at, wouldn't it? Because the electrons would be under a different amount of pressure. Shit. So you don't think that's an explanation? Fuck you. It is. God, you suck. All right. Did you get it, Sid? Question mark. I'm pretty sure he does explain the double slit pattern. Yeah, well, I explained the single slit. The double slit gets a little bit complicated because, again, as I pointed out before, it's a surface experiment. So you have the 2 interior surfaces, and then you have the 2 exterior surfaces. And clearly, it's the interior surfaces, that distance, right? The trick in this, I've explained this before. In the math, in the single slit experiment, they count this distance of the opening, and they call that the variable, you know, whatever it is, A or D, usually labeled A or D. And then the double slit, they don't put the slit width in the math. They put the impediment width in the math. But the impediment width is, again, the dimension of the distance between the surfaces. It's about surfaces and their distance from each other. It doesn't have anything to do with slits. You can have single surface diffraction. A single surface will also create a pattern. You're just harder to see. All right. I think he goes over the details in his video specifically about the slit experiment. Okay, here it goes. I'm pretty sure. Okay, his hypothesis. He hypothesizes and makes some educated guesses. So again, I've been doing this for 7 fucking years. I've been over a ton of details. I've watched a ton of lectures. This is just all more horseshit. You want to just sit there and classify me? No. Counter my arguments with a fucking argument. This bullshit messenger shit is just fucking asswipe dick shit. Fuck you. I agree with him. It has to do with the walls. Well, then why are you giving me this harassment? Why are you sitting there and saying I'm the asshole when these physicists are the asshole? These are the assholes that need jackasses like you harassing them with this fucking bullshit. He hypothesizes and makes some educated guesses. Well, why don't you say that to go on one of these fucking channels, and why don't you say that to Professor Lewin or something? Because that's all they're doing, jackass. Why is it okay for you to be rude to me? Why don't you be rude to them? All right, but how exactly? Only speculation. It's not only speculation because a lot of it we know. The concept of charge. We know electrons. We know the atom is mostly empty space. We know the electron is in tension. So what do you mean it's just speculation? It's not just speculation. It's a mechanical description of a functional device. Fuck you again. I think he goes over the details in videos specifically about the slit experiments. Yeah, so whatever. Just, you know, just a fucking asshole. So more retracted messages. Coincidentally, I seen this video and all its errors and immediately thought it would be really interesting to see your reaction to it. I mean, it's these aren't errors, right? These are overt bullshitisms. Oh, look at the magnetic fields rotating. Electromagnets are different than regular magnets. This is the blah, 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 blah. All that's just horse shit. And again, they're the ones. Have we heard him say the word Maxwell anywhere? I mean, it's Maxwell's equations that are saying that shit ain't happening. Maxwell's equations are talking about a diverging force, rays of force that are diverging, and that's the inverse square law. So how come we can't draw that? Oh, that's right, because it doesn't work for their bullshit. Okay, agree. All right, see. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Dick. Yeah, it was fun. I really appreciate it. Look, I like somebody. I'm perfectly willing to answer questions. It's just that you don't really phrase these as questions. You phrase them as accusations. And I'm just so sick of that. I've been there and done that. Especially, like I said, when you're going to go to a channel that has 1,000 videos, right? I'm well over 1,000 videos now. I've been doing this for 7 fucking years. And you're going to watch one video and start saying, blah, 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 blah. Well, fuck that. It's physics, for fuck's sake. You want 5-minute physics? You can't do physics in 5 minutes.
So electrons have a magnetic dipole moment, meaning they feel magnetic fields and act as little bar magnets.
Well, let's understand. They feel the force. Okay, that's what they feel. Electrons feel it when yellow stuff comes at them. They feel it and they move. They're a ping pong paddle. They feel yellow ping pong balls bounce off of them. Silver ones, fuck it. But yellow ones, yeah, they feel it.
Electrons in atoms feel the magnetic fields produced by their own orbits.
So more, they feel the fields produced by their own orbit. So again, they smell their own fart and follow the path of their own fart. I mean, it's just bullshit.
Surround the atom.
So again, so now they have all this stuff moving, right? And these lines don't even finish, right? Look, they just, well, fuck it. You know, but it's just more of this like, oh yeah, there's this magical, the electron does, well, no, actually nothing does. That's a virtual, well, I don't know what that is. That's just the line to nowhere, the current of nothingness. No, then it doesn't do anything. If it's nothing, it doesn't do anything. Nothing can't do something.
This results in a subtle torque.
Oh, this torque again.
Electrons, changing their energy states and resulting in...
So again, electrons don't have an energy state. They have an energetic position. So they're caught in tension. Tension with other electrons and tension with protons. So even when, like in a hydrogen atom or something, there's only the proton and the neutron and an electron. Well, the neutron is a proton and an electron. Okay, so there's always, when there's a neutron, there's always a proton and always an electron. So that's the magnet, right? That's the, and the electron is saying, I want to get to the silver thing. But the neutron is doing this spinning thing. So the electron says, oh, I want to go there. And then it says, oh, I don't want to go there. Oh, I want to go there. Oh, no, I don't want to go there. See, so the electron doesn't have to be in an orbit, right? I mean, so let's say this was a silver and it's attracted to the yellow, right? Because it's always the opposite. So this is an electron. It's attracted to the proton inside the neutron. And let's say the neutron is spinning. See? So now it's repulsed. And it's, oh, I'm attracted. And it's, oh, I'm repulsed. Oh, I'm attracted. Oh, I'm repulsed. See? So I don't even need to have an orbit. All I have to do is spin the neutron. You get it? They're glued to one idea of reality, and they can't see anything in any other way. They just keep trying to make solar systems into galaxies and this, and they're trying to take spherical things and compare them to flat things. They can't do this. They're just, and they're fundamentally ignorant in the sense they want to make everything into a pull force when it's obviously everything's pushed. Because there can't be any pull, because pull is retarded.
The fine structure splitting of electron energy levels. The fine structure constant is named after this effect, and we talked about this fundamental constant in an earlier episode.
An earlier episode of La 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 Pretty Colors. La 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 La. Yeah, I'm sure that was a really good video too, full of all kinds of rational stuff with big piles of evidence provided.
Thinking of electrons as little bar magnets or as rotating balls.
Again, just so silly. Why would I do that? Why would I think an electron is a dipole when I know it's a negative and the proton is a positive? Isn't that screaming that's the dipole? Plus, minus, that's the dipole? And I wouldn't think that the negative end is a dipole when it's clearly monopole. One thing, it's negative. The other thing is one thing, positive. How do they make this? I don't know how they do this. How can they make it rational to think of an electron as a dipole?
Charge is a nice starting point, but in the end, it's misleading. It also,
yeah, so he just basically said, what I just told you is horseshit. So let me try another version. I mean, it's hilarious.
also gives you completely the wrong answer if you try to calculate the electron's magnetic moment.
Right, because the whole concept is idiotic. And second, you can't do electron experiments in real space. You can't. Electrons are as hard to look at as almost like a photon. because no matter where you put them, there's some charge field that's going to fuck with them. So you have to create an experiment where you're basically controlling the charge they're in. And by controlling the charge, you can't measure anything about them because you're controlling them. You're putting them in tension. You can't measure what it is when you've put it somewhere that defines what it is. Its position defines what it is, so to speak. How close it is to another electron defines whether the electron can shoot out of the orbit or not. How much pressure there is defines where it can go. So if you charge it up by putting a bunch of protons around it to, you put a proton above it and a proton below it to try to, tug it and keep it in one position and put it in tension. Well, you've put all that energy in. That's not the electron's natural state. That's a very unnatural state.
So that electron diagram you did in middle school, it's time to kill that idea.
Yes, well, I'm all for that also, but I wouldn't replace it with your wacky notion.
Just like you killed your Tamagotchi. In fact, weirdly, if you measure the magnetic dipole moment of an electron, you get almost exactly twice the value you'd expect for a tiny classical sphere with the same...
So again, they don't measure any of this stuff. This is just their mathematical crapola. This has nothing to do with any fucking experiment. There's no way to measure the electron's magnetic moment, because that's basically saying I can control how the electron is moving to measure it. And you can't look at an electron without moving it. You can't shoot photons at an electron without moving it. You can't, there's no way to see it without moving it. And if you move it, you've changed its magnetic moment. They can't have one that you can measure. Besides the fact that it's not a magnet. Oh, shit. It is not a dipole. That's what the minus sign means. I'm not a dipole. That's what the minus sign is saying out loud. I'm not a dipole. I'm a monopole. That's why I don't have plus and minus. I just have minus.
Charge and angular momentum as an electron. This difference between the quantum versus classical magnetic moments for the electron.
Okay, classic versus quantum, but it's just bullshit. There's no classic magnetic moment anyway, right? So that's all horseshit. So what he's saying there is that, well, that's when you have regular orbits around an atom. Well, we've gotten rid of the orbits, and now we just do this Heisenberg thing. So that's what the new physics is that it's not in one place. So its magnetic moment can be, almost any number. I don't know. I don't even know what he's saying here. Just horse shit.
Is called the G factor. It's the number you need to multiply the classical value by to get the right answer. So apparently...
So there's no classical measurement of an electron's magnetic moment. Just understand. That never happened. There's no classical... Newton never measured an electron's magnetic moment.
G equals 2. Experiments point to this, but
there's no experiments that point to any of this. So again, more horse shit. We have experiment. There's no experiment. That's why he's not showing the experiment. That's why he didn't even name the experiment. That's why he's not even showing an illustration of the experiment. Because there is no fucking experiment.
So does the Dirac equation.
Dirac, the guy who invented antiparticles, right? So yeah, that guy's, he's really good at inventing bullshit. Fuck. I'm sorry, it's just bullshit. Dirac was just full of shit. All right, let's see if anything else. Thank you. No, not a single comment. I'm good.
This equation is the origin of quantum electrodynamics and the first to correctly...
So again, it's the origin of quantum electrodynamics, which is just horseshit, because quantum electrodynamics existed before quantum mechanics. Before there was quantum mechanics, there was quantum electrodynamics. That's what it was called before they turned it into horseshit. So, I mean, he's got it exactly backwards.
Capture the notion of quantum spin. It describes electrons as weird four-component objects with quantum.
All right, weird four-component objects. So this is physics. Weird. We're just going to use words like weird, us physicists, because we're being so precise and we measure everything to 0.0000000 accuracy, and we do all that really fancy stuff, and we can see things to 10 to the minus 17 percenting the zeros and blah 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 blah, and we can calculate pi for all the way to the moon and back, and we can do all this precise, and we're going to call it weird. We'll call the quark strange. We're physicists. Full of shiticists. Full of shiticists. Oh, I like that. Full of shiticists. I have to write that down. Full of shiticists. Ooh. Cysts. I don't know how to spell it, but that's what they are. Full of shiticists.
Spin magnitudes of half. That's a whole bunch of crazy we talk about here. So
yeah, we talk about the crazy shit and how it's the silly shit and the sloppy shit, the messy shit, the invented shit, the made up shit. It's all crap. Yeah, it's all a kind of shit called in the category of crap.
Measurements say the G factor is around 2, and Dirac says it's exactly 2. Case closed, right?
No, there's no measurement, and Dirac is a kook.
Wrong. Oh, so very wrong. See, even though the Dirac equation tells us how a relativistic electron would interact with an electromagnetic field.
Okay, a relativistic electron. So again, now they've had these electrons are going so fast that the relativity kicks in and starts fucking with their time dimensionality. Okay, and again, does that sound probable, or does it sound more likely that they're just magnets in a heated circumstance? They're magnetically tied to each other, and the electrons aren't magnets. They're charges tied to each other in opposite tension. So I've drawn the picture before. I'll draw it again just to be sure you people, you can really, there's different ways for me to draw the tension, just as I pointed out with the very simple neutron. But like, say, a more complex atom, it becomes more obvious how you could have systems that would create tension. So you could sort of understand that if these were magnets, and we'll put an X in the middle one just to point out. So this one in the middle, oh dear, that's not very dark. Well, it'll do. This one in the middle is the proton, right? And these are the electrons. So you can sort of see that, okay, the electrons are spaced by distance, and they're all attracted to the proton. But as you can see, this electron can't move towards the proton without getting closer to these electrons. And these electrons won't let it essentially go to the proton, because these electrons don't want to get any closer to each other, and they don't want to get any further from the proton. So if the electron can't move out because it's attracted to the proton, and it can't, so it really doesn't have an option. It can't move this way because it doesn't want to get closer to this electron. So you can sort of see there's a huge amount of tension. The whole thing is just held together by tension. There's force pushing on the electron towards the proton because all the force is leaking out, right? All the silver force is flying out of the proton, all the yellow force is flying out of the electron. So very low pressure between the electron and the proton. And then these are all yellows, and the force between them is all yellow. Lots of ping pong balls bouncing back and forth. So lots of pressure between them, but you can't push one down because that makes it closer and makes more pressure. And see, if you make more pressure, if you force it with energy down, and then you let the pressure loose, then it's an X-ray, right? That's how you create high energy photons, is you compress these electrons, you make this circle, this hexagon, you make it smaller, you increase the pressure. When you release that pressure, it'll be higher frequency pressure. The ping pong balls are moving a shorter distance. And it all has to do with the resonance, right? So they all end up in resonance. They all end up moving with each other as you take them from a big space to a narrow space. I don't want to explain all that, but that was, you know, I'm going to take, it's going to take forever for me to get through this video if I keep doing this shit. All right, no new comments. Cool. Continuing.
It still treats this EM field classically. It doesn't consider the quantum nature of the field. Only the...
So again, there's no quantum nature. There's just two different composing theories. They think the photon is Heisenberging. They think the force bits are probabilisticing, randoming. And I'm arguing that we know the atoms are the thing in the tension, and we know they're being bombarded by all kinds of radiation. The fuck that bit went off. All kinds of radiation. And so they're jostling. And so when the photon hits one of these jostling bits, there's a probability created by what the likelihood it'll be in this position, this position, this position, this position, all depends on the motion of that jostle. How much, you know, the circle can be like this, which would mean there's a high probability that you're going this way or this way, and a low probability that you're going this way or down. You see, all that's where it all is. The probability, the wave, is in the electrons and the protons. There's no wave in the photon. So they have fundamentally got it wrong, just like they got plus and minus wrong, just as they got wave and particle wrong, just as they got everything. They got in every single thing they get wrong, everything that was a 50-50 choice, you know, speed of force versus speed of light. They've got it wrong.
Fully developed quantum electrodynamics.
Push versus pull. Wrong. Glaringly wrong. Profoundly wrong.
First true quantum field theory does this. And QED tells us that the quantum electromagnetic field is a...
All right, so we're not going to get any evidence of any of this. It tells us we know it, we figured it all out, we have the book, we know it, blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing. Nothing moved. Look, nothing in the background, nothing. So he's just talking this shit that we know something, but he can't explain how they know it because it'll sound like absolute horseshit. It'll sound like their dark matter crap. Or their let's convert some solar masses into bent space.
Messy place. It seethes with a faint quantum buzz, infinite phantom oscillation.
Okay, so quantum buzz, infinite phantom oscillation. So this is physics, right? This is their details. Quantum buzz, infinite phantom oscillations, virtual photons, bent geometry. I mean, fuck. When do you assholes say, oh, Christ, why are we doing this? Why are we listening to these shitheads?
That add infinite complication to any...
Infinite complication. We have all the answers, except it's all infinitely complicated.
Electromagnetic interaction. This messiness messes with the interaction of the electron and the magnetic field to shift the G factor slightly. So it's not exactly 2, it's 2.00116.
Right, and that's really important because that's what makes all of it. Oh, it wouldn't be anything happening at all without this G factor 2-y thingy, blah, 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 blah. How could it possibly be relevant? Just think about it for a second. Okay, two magnets move into each other. Two magnets repel each other when I flip it over. That's because there's a 2 factor. 2.1 factor. Too silly.
1, 4, etc. That little bit extra is the anomaly, and this is the anomalous magnetic dipole moment. It's really incredible that we can even begin to calculate the effect of the messy buzzing electromagnetic field.
Yes, it's incredible. Yes, exactly. It's uncredible. That has no credibility that you can do any of these things you claim to do because you haven't even gotten push and pull right.
But in fact, we can calculate its effect extremely precisely.
More claims that will not be proven. Look, here's the number. I can't test it against reality because we can't see any of this shit. I mean, just more horse shit.
And test this through
No, you won't test it. There's no evidence of any test. This is just such a lie. We tested it by doing the formula on the back of the piece of paper. So we did it on this side of the paper, and then we did it on this side of the paper to test it. And the formula on this side of the paper turned out to be just like this one. So it must be the truth. Right? I mean, if I write God on this side of the paper, God is real. And then I write God is real on this side of the paper, that sort of proves God is real, right? Pretty much.
Experiments showing the underlying truth of quantum theory.
Yeah, that shows the underlying truth because we don't, evidence. We have a formula that says so. It's, the plus we plus are right divided by all the time. Don't you believe it? Sounds like a good formula, right? We are right all the time. Or something. It's close to that. It's that plus 1.782.
Theory. So one way to think about this quantum buzz is with virtual photons.
Ah, there we go. Because we don't have any energy, so we have to call them fake things because we can't explain where they came from because it's a poof. So they're just saying, so just fuck the word virtual. They're saying poofatons. The poofatons do it.
Quantum field theory describes the interactions between particles as the sum total of all possible interactions that can lead to the same result.
Yes, it's just more horse shit that, yes, somewhere in all the answers is the right answer. Duh. Yeah, the right answer happens to be right in the middle of all the shit we piled on around it.
In the case of electromagnetism, those interactions are mediated by virtual photons.
So here we go. Those interactions are mediated by poofatons. The poofatons will decide. No. Poofatons will, again, the virtual photons are, without them, there's no magnetism. They are the ones carrying the force because they don't have a force. So they have to have a fake thing carry it.
Which is just a mathematical way to describe quantum buzz.
Yeah, it's just a way of getting around the fact that they have no explanation for why things are moving. Yeah. They have no source for the movement. They have no energy for the movement. No explanation for the movement.
Every interaction with virtual photons that can happen does.
So again, they have the photons moving instead of the matter moving, which is just so obviously the wrong answer. You've given the perpetrator his freedom and putting the victim in jail. You're throwing the baby out and keeping the bathwater.
At least in a sense. And the sum of the infinite possible interactions.
Infinite possible interactions. Again, there aren't an infinite number of possible interactions. It's just horse shit, especially with photons. This battery is right here. It's not, one of the infinite possibilities isn't it just went to Pluto and bounced off and flew back here again. There's no infinite possibilities. That's just horse shit. Bullshit language. Virtual photon and infinite possibilities. This is what they're saying. Those are not scientifically defendable terms. They're scientifically indefensible terms.
Defines the strength of the one real interaction. And if that doesn't make your head hurt,
yeah, the one real one. That's right. All of this other crap is just that crap. The photon moves from point A to point B in a straight fucking line. It doesn't have any of this other crap. And if it hits an electron, it can be bent, and it's going to be bent a specific amount based on a specific circumstance. There is no probability. There's only certainties. Okay. And the only thing that varies is the variables. The electron can be in a different position at different moments in its life cycle. I mean, it's just, anyway, it's just so dishonest.
try thinking about it again. So yeah, quantum field theory is a type of madness. And again, we've been down that rabbit.
Okay, rabbit hole and madness. So again, more of this concession that, look, we're talking shit. We might as well be talking Holy Ghost horse crap, some kind of convoluted, strange arrangement between God and his lover, the Holy Ghost, and his molested child, Jesus, and his whatever holy mother, blah, 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 blah. Oh, this is such crap. All right. Liking the pressure proximity resonance explanations with your diagrams. It makes it easy for people to understand. It's all push pressure type dynamics. Yes, push, 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 push. It's so obviously a push universe. Pull is idiotic because you can't make it except out of a push. Pouvetons, LOL. Yes, that wasn't bad.
In particular, we've looked a bit at Feynman diagrams, which are our best tool for dealing with the absurd complexity of quantum fields.
Yeah, well, let's understand. Feynman diagrams can be perfectly rational or they can be perfectly irrational. So Feynman diagrams, when it just has to do with an electron and a proton, they're really good. All right, I mean, a photon and an electron. They make perfect good sense, right? But then he starts doing the antiparticle and it hits a boson or a fermion, and then it jumps into the future, and then it gives back the energy, and the energy goes back to the past. And I mean, it turns into complete mush. So yeah, I can't make a generic endorsement of Feynman diagrams because they're obviously turned into absolute shit when you end up Diractorizing them. So when you Diractorize a Feynman diagram, you might as well just throw it in the garbage.
They represent the possible interactions of the quantum field by way of virtual photons, and they tell you which interactions are the most important and which are insignificant. So, you don't have to calculate infinity of them.
So again, yes, we all like to just say, let's just do the net effect and let's generalize, and that's all fair. But again, there's no generalizing about your fake energy, your fake mechanisms, your fake charges, your fake spins, your fake bullshit. None of this horse shit has anything to do with what really happens. Photons hit electrons. So here we have a photon and we have an electron, presumably. And a perfectly rational thing will happen. The electron will take some of the momentum of the photon, and in theory, it's only going to take it for a short period of time, and then it's going to release a photon again at a new angle. And the angular momentums will have to be equal. They'll have to add up, just like when a spaceship goes around the moon and it collects a little bit of the lunar orbit. So it goes into orbit in the same direction that the moon is moving around the Earth. So it goes around, and as it's orbiting the moon, it's collecting the moon's velocity. So then when it finally heads back towards the Earth, it uses a little bit of energy to get out of the gravity of the moon, but its velocity has increased because it's stolen the velocity of the moon, and the moon is actually moving a little bit slower. So it's all conserved. There's nothing magical about this part of it. You don't need all this woo shit.
Basic interaction of an electron with an EM field is illustrated by this partial Feynman diagram.
Yes, and look how simple it is. It's just an electron has a certain tension. Now, I would say you don't need to give the electron movement because the photon has the movement. But the electron is in tension, and it can be going up or it can be going down. It can be going left. It can be going right. So depending on which way the electron is jittering at the moment the photon hits it, will decide whether the photon leaves straight or whether it leaves this way or whether it leaves this way or whether it leaves this way. And that's your interference pattern. That's your variable outcome. And the variable outcome is dependent on the exact moment you hit the electron, which way the electron is happening to be tugged, whether it's moving this way or it's moving up and down or it's moving this way. Depending on which way the electron's being tugged at the moment will dictate how straight this line is, what angle it is.
Electron encounters a real photon that could represent an external magnetic field.
Exactly. So they're conceding that, look, this thing looks just like a photon. It works just like a photon. They're basically saying right to your face, this energy that comes out of magnets, it works just like light. It's the same thing. And the argument is gravity is the same thing. It works the same way. It's a radial force moving the speed of light. It's all one force. I mean, they have, like I said, unification is right in their hands and they can't see it. It's right there in front of you and they can't get it.
Reflected in some way. But the same encounter could look like this. The electron first emits a virtual photon, then gets deflected, then reabsorbs the virtual photon. Same particles in and out, so it leads to the same overall result.
Right. So this is just their horseshit way of saying, well, we account for the energy by creating the energy, and we use the energy we created to make the energy that created the energy. So this is just the convoluted. Again, this is like the guy saying the pressure inside of the earth is creating gravity when obviously the pressure inside of the earth was created by gravity. You can't use it to create gravity because gravity needed to create it. I mean, you can't, certain things have to happen in a certain order. The vagina came before the penis. You see, push, pull. There's certain, you can't make a pull till you first make pushes. You can't make penises if there's no vaginas. It just doesn't make any sense. Penises wouldn't know what to do. They'd be completely confused. You have to make the vaginas first.
But now the electron undergoes an additional interaction with the buzzing quantum field.
Buzzing quantum field. So this is their precise, highly accurate, completely coherent, you should believe me, and they use these kinds of the quantum buzz. Yeah. The dopey, wobble weeble.
We need to include this sort of secondary interaction when we calculate, say, the overall strength of an electron's interaction with the magnetic field. When we calculate...
So again, just more bullshit. They're just showing this little same thing over and over again. But this means something. This little hook line means something. Oh, the virtual photon popped out and is doing something that makes everything turn out exactly the same. So this is how they explain how conventional physics is wrong, because it doesn't have this stupid little curved line on it. Oh yeah, conventional physics is bullshit because it doesn't have this thing on it. This thing's doing all the work when it's not doing anything. Kind of obviously. It didn't change a thing, did it? No, it's not doing a fucking thing.
The electron's magnetic dipole moment.
Again, no dipole moment. Can't be a dipole. Has to be a monopole. It's not a dipole. Electrons aren't magnetic. They are yellow or silver. Yeah.
It's G factor.
No,
we consider
G factor bullshit. Again, we still don't know what this G factor is, why it should be important to anybody, how it's significant, because they can't show you a picture of it. They can't draw the G factor. It's a course shit.
only the first interaction I showed, along with similar primary ones, you calculate a G factor of exactly 2. But if you include this secondary interaction, you get G equals 2.00116.
Right. So if you do that first little thing, and then if you put that little curvy line on, you get this extra 0.000 crappy. I mean, more just horse shit.
614. This correction was first calculated by American physicist Julian Schwinger in 1949. It was
another douche.
Amazing result for the time, but a lot of time has passed since then, and physicists were not content to simply stop at this first correction. See, there really are infinite ways the electron can interact with the EM field.
Okay, infinite ways is a bullshit term. There aren't infinite ways. The field isn't infinite. It's a confined amount of space. There can't be an infinite amount of interactions in the confined space. This is just, again, they should be in trouble just for saying that word, infinite. You all should say, you can't do that. You can't put infinities inside of spaces this small. You can't do that.
With crazy networks of virtual particles and virtual matter-antimatter.
So more bullshit. So yes, more antimatter he's saying now. We're supposed to believe in that. We have to believe in anti-Higgses and anti-this and anti-that and anti-neutrinos. We don't even have neutrinos, and we have to have anti-neutrinos. This is just such fucking bullshit. Anti-hairs on your ass.
Loops between the real ingoing and outgoing particles. The more complicated the interaction, the less it contributes to the overall effect.
Oh, the more complicated, the less it contributes. Now, is there any reason to believe that's true? No. Why should how complicated the path is have anything to do with how much the effect is? It's like saying I could go into a cul-de-sac, and that I could have a real complicated cul-de-sac or a real simple cul-de-sac, and it somehow makes a difference when I pop out. There's a stop sign. I have to either stop or I don't stop. It doesn't change anything how long I've traveled. It's more horse shit.
But contribute they do. Over time, physicists have included more and more corrections, refining the prediction of the G factor to increasing precision.
Again, it's more crap. Increasing precision that has no relevance, that can't possibly mean anything. It's just horse shit. We've just invented more invisible things hitting invisible things, more fake things involving other fake things to explain something that, generally speaking, always turns out a certain way, which is, the magnet's this way, it's this way, it's this way, it's this way. It's in certain positions, and in certain positions, it'll do certain things. And those probabilities are highly reliable.
For each new degree of precision, the number of Feynman diagrams needed explodes. Schwinger did his 1949 calculation by hand. Since 2008, all calculations are done on large supercomputing clusters.
Well, I guess that makes you all pretty fucking lame then, that you can't even do, 1848 mathematics. And I'm supposed to trust you? You can't even do shit that the guy in the black and white photo could do? God, you people suck.
However, the ultimate arbiter of any physical theory is experiment.
Yes, which you have none. You have no experiments, at least no experiments in reality, in any kind of rational frame. Yeah, they're all in irrational frames.
To actually measure the G factor with the same high precision as these calculations requires some cunning.
No, it requires bullshit. Just big pile of bullshit. And then you stick a card that says G factor in the bullshit. It doesn't matter where you put it, right? You just shovel the shit. You say, hey, look, I found the G factor card. It's just bullshit. You put the card in the pile of shit. There's no fucking surprise that you found it in the shit. You should put it in there.
One way to do it is to watch the way electrons process in the constant magnetic field of a cyclotron.
Oh, right. So now we're stuck back with their stupid accelerators, like they can see the photons in the accelerator. You know exactly. No, they can't bend a photon. So again, this is all just horse shit. So where the electron is, you can only see an electron, right? Is if you force it to emit radiation. And the only way it emits radiation is because you're moving it with other electrons. Electrons can't make a photon unless they're associated with another electron. There has to be more than one electron or there's no photons emittable. Electrons can't make a photon unless there's another electron somewhere.
A type of particle accelerator. Electron spin axes are always slightly misaligned with an external magnetic field due to quantum uncertainty in the spin direction. As a result,
this is all more horseshit. This hyperboloid, all this shit doesn't happen inside of any accelerator. This is just a completely made up pile of shit drawing. Doesn't have anything to do with reality. Just complete bullshit.
They feel a torque from that field and precess like a top. This is called Larmor precession, and the rate of this precession tells us the electron G factor. And the results?
Yeah, it says them. More horseshit. There's no G factor. There's no fucking. This is just such crap. Self-confirming, circular confirming crap.
Are staggering. The measured G factor agrees with the calculated value to 10 decimal places. Now, I need to add a little subtlety here. To get from the QED calculations to a value for G, you also need to know the fine structure constant that I mentioned earlier. This is the fundamental constant governing the strength of the electromagnetic interaction of charged particles. This requires an independent experimental measurement. So it's really the relationship between the electron magnetic moment and the fine structure constant that we're verifying.
Yes, yeah, we're not really verifying any of this. We're just assuming that if we can find something that looks a little bit similar, we can declare that it's the same thing. So if we see a water wave and we put slits in it and we watch the waves interfere with each other, we can say, well, look, let's put slits in front of photons and see if we get a pattern. And well, so what that it's a bar pattern, and so what it's not as gradual as it should be, and so what it's not exactly right. It's the same function. So that's all he just said there. He said this is just like everything else we do. We just look for anything that looks a little bit similar and say, it's identical.
That prediction is the most accurately verified prediction in the history of physics.
Oh, I mean,
but it's hard. Physics is the study of the natural world. We make observations of reality and then try to find theoretical frameworks.
Again, has nothing to do with the natural world, right? A cyclotron has nothing to do with the natural world, has nothing to do with a natural condition for an atom. These particles last zillionths of a second. I mean, this is just such horseshit. These experiments are all based on 4,000 assumptions about what's in the accelerator, assumptions about how much is in the accelerator, assumptions about, it's all assumptions.
Works that explain those observations. If those theories are good, they're able to predict things beyond the observations on which the theory was built. The better these predictions,
it's like a little, it really is. They're playing organ. It's like organ music. It's like church. La 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 la. You can almost feel the angel wings growing. This is fucking religion.
Universal and presumably the more correct, the theory. The theory of quantum electrodynamics has been pushed to the experimental limit and
okay, again, there's no experiments. There's just this stupid thing. They think when we use an atom smasher, these are experiments that everybody should have huge amounts of respect for, and they're really great experiments. When what they are is they fill a chamber full of a gas and they cut a path through it. And the path remains visible for seconds so they can take a picture of it. So they're not taking a picture of anything real. They're taking a picture of a trail they've cut through something that photons are bouncing off of that we're seeing the reflection of. A huge amount of energy is being expended just to cut that path. And they're pretending they're seeing what is actually happening by seeing something. It's like watching me swim through mud, right? swimming through mud and then saying that's how humans work. Me swimming through in mud is not how humans work.
Unscathed. That means that it and the quantum mechanical principles on which it is founded are good representations of reality. We have to conclude.
Yeah, we have to conclude. You have to believe. Trust us. We know what we're doing. When they haven't figured out pull is idiotic. They haven't figured out that calling something a virtual photon, it should be a non-starter for a scientist, a proofaton. That should be a non-starter. Making some basic God of the gap bullshit. Well, we'll just say that the biggest force in the universe that's moving galaxies is just some sort of bent geometry thing. No energy required. The geometry does it.
That we're getting closer and closer to the truth in our search for theories to explain the underlying mechanics
we're trying so
of
hard,
space-time.
and we're doing so much, and we're working it so well, and we're just so good at it, and we're just so special. No, you're fucking religious kooks.
Thanks to the Great Courses Plus for supporting PBS Digital Studios.
Fuck them. Yeah, the Great Courses Plus. They had to have a plus add to it. Why? Why'd they have to add a plus? Because I guess the Great Courses sucked. So they had to repackage it as plus. And then they'll have plus, like C++. And then maybe C++. And then plus. Extra special plus, quantum. Quantum Great Courses. The Great Quantum Courses plus Quantum.
The Great Courses Plus is a digital learning service that allows you to learn about a range of topics from educators.
Yes, and educators like me. People who just talk shit and promise that they've done all the experiments and they found all the proof, and they have big piles of proof everywhere, big piles of it. Fingerprints and everything. Yeah, they don't have shit. They have shit. That's all they have. They have shit, but they don't have any proof.
Ivy League professors and other experts from around the world. You can go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/spacetime to get access to a library of different video lectures about science, math, history, literature, or even how to cook, play chess, or become a photographer.
Oh, well, how special is all of that? Yes, it's very special. Special. What is this? All this is commercial? I guess he's going to do comments.
New subjects, lectures, and professors are...
Oh, fuck him. Fuck it. I ain't going to play any more of this crap. Horse shit. Okay. Anti-hairs on your ass. Yes, that's another funny line. I'm pretty funny sometimes. All right, so I'll give you knuckleheads a little bit of time to type something relevant, and if you don't, then fuck you too. I mean, or also. Yeah, I think that's proper. Fuck you also. I'm gonna get my grammar right. Let's see how many douchebags are in here. 12. Jeez. God, I mean, it's pathetic. Here I am sitting here on, I have found the Holy Grail. I'm sitting here showing it to you. Look, the Holy Grail of physics. I've unified. It's all right here. It's right here. You can be right in on the birth of it. It's right here in front of you. And you're all missing it. You're all missing out. Dumbass people. Dumbass Google. Dumbass internet. Yeah, so annoying. Anyway, Gorilla. I painted this like 20 years ago also. This shirt has been washed like thousands of times. And it's still there. You can still see them. There used to be green leaves and stuff. You really can't see them very well. But it was really very good. You know, very wearable. Well, I'm just saying, it's just obviously virtual photon. They all should say to themselves, we got to fix that, right? Okay, let's say it for a few weeks just because, we got to say something, but we got to fix that right away. And they've had that virtual photon thing. They've been sitting on that one for fucking 40, 50 years, 60 years, right? I mean, they've been sitting on that since Maxwell, for fuck's sake. And they haven't fixed it. Yeah. They're just like, okay, well, you know, I'm comfortable. I'm used to it. It's terrible. So maybe I'll play some of the freaking crap thing. The crap thing? I think I should call it the crap thing. That doesn't seem like a good thing to call it. The whatever the hell it was. Yeah, the thing. The thing. I don't know what I did with it. That's probably was. Oh well, this is the drawing program. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I can draw like that. Anyway, what's this? Oh yeah, then I gotta read that. Oh, so much shit to do. It's terrible. That's way too many things. Way too many projects. Way too many. There's my subscriptions. There it is. See if there's anything new. So I did watch the Bill Gates guy, and you know he's making some good points about the standard model, going through all of the Zooons and Puons and Juons and whatever, and he pretty well makes fun of the whole silly standard model, and that's okay. But he just keeps saying things like, "Particle model can't explain pole." Yeah, well, because pole is retarded. Why would it want to explain pole? Pole is stupid. Oh, jeez. All right, let's see. Quantum buzz also makes me think about external quanta influences. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, to me, again, it's just buzz. I mean, he just explained how this is the most precisely calculated number in the history of mankind. It was 0.00000000000000000 places. And then they say something like buzz. I mean, it's just, what sense does that make? We have the most precise measurement of buzz ever. I mean, come on. You can't precisely measure buzz. So anyway. Magic unexplained noise calculated flawlessly. Yes. Virtual noise calculated flawlessly. Infinite virtual noise. Yeah, it's pathetic. No, but I've done well. This was the last 5 videos. I have just, you know, just I've done my job. And the truth is, there hasn't been really any rational counter argument to a single thing I've said. A little bit of pissing and moaning about proper use of the word angular momentum and little gripes about other meaningless shit, but basically not a single argument explaining how my description of reality can't be right and this experiment proves it has to be bullshit or any of that crap. It fits the frickin' evidence. It fits what we see. But I'm really surprised. Like I said, I really didn't think physicists thought electrons were a dipole, that they somehow could be a magnet. I mean, it just, I don't know how they could think that. I mean, when they know that electrons and protons are creating magnetism, when they know that that's what makes the atom magnetic, is the imbalance of the electrons and the protons, how could they think that the proton is really a magnet and the electron is really a magnet? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, the fact that they are the monopoles, I just, to me, that's, I don't know how they assumed differently. I remember at first, I realized at first when Professor Lewin said, "You'll never find a magnetic monopole, and it's an automatic Nobel Prize if you can find one." And I was like, "What do you mean, find an electron? Wait, you're going to give me a Nobel Prize for finding an electron? Come on, it's a monopole, fucker. That's what charge is." I just can't, it really did surprise me. So, let's see if there's anything else to comment on before I go. And so I did the comments. I have some of the Bill Gates stuff. I'll do that another time. I'll play a couple of his clips where he's saying the particle models can't explain push or pull. Particle models can't do this. Particle, he's just so arrogant, and he thinks it's retarded. He calls people who believe in particles retarded. The guy who thinks every atom is connected to every other atom in the universe. I mean, with a rope. That every atom inside of me has a rope going to every atom inside of all of you, into my computer, into the walls of my house, into the clouds, into space, into the moon, into the atoms at every single inch of the universe. There's a rope between me, my atoms, and those atoms. I can't even imagine just like this gorilla being connected to every thing in the universe, let alone every atom. Just imagine this one gorilla being connected to everything. Like, there's rope between it and this vaporizer, and a rope between this and magnifying glass and the gorilla. Even that seems fucking idiotic. I mean, it's a ludicrous theory. So anyway, Jenna, let's see what she has to say. Sorry if this is a rudimentary question. Oh, I like that from girls. Keep it simple. But why is the push-pull terminology used? Because the convergence created in Einstein's relativity is a pull. It goes to the center of the material bit, and it's no explanation for why it goes there. If the movement is a result of an imbalanced force, why do we not simply use the word force? Well, I'm just saying, see, they don't think it's a force. They don't think gravity is a force. They don't think of it as a force. They think of it as some virtual thing, like the magnets. They think it's a virtual photon, and they're basically saying the reason why they can't explain magnetism is because they're saying basically the little thing shoots out of the magnet, hits this thing, and somehow makes it come in, and that doesn't make any sense, right? How can something hit it and pull it? So yeah, they can't make it make sense. That's why they have to call it virtual, because I can't make it a real thing, because real things are going to make it move away, not make it move towards, because they don't understand that the force is polarized. Do you think other fields are almost as screwed up as physicists? No. Well, history's always been a lie. Yeah, I mean, like the whole Declaration of Independence, the whole, the guy who wrote the little pamphlets, it was all a sham to get a bunch of suckers to die so rich Americans could own America. They just didn't want the British to own it anymore. I mean, they lived over here in America and they just wanted to be the owners. They didn't want to be servants to the British. And so it wasn't anything about people being free. It was just about American businessmen owning the businesses. If not, then why is physics uniquely so screwed up in your view? Well, because it can be. Physics is about things that are fundamentally invisible. You can put the wrong head on a dinosaur and you can figure it out later. You say, oh yeah, okay, we put the wrong head on the wrong bones. You can see your mistakes. You can't see, like I said, you can't prove there's no dark matter. You can't prove there's no bent geometry. You can't, there's nothing in physics where you can say, here's the crystal clear experiment. Here's the videotape of the photon. So there's no way to fix the errors. Where regular sciences, they have to base things on real evidence, not made up crap. They're not dealing with things so small that they can just make up a fake story about what they're doing. Their stuff has to do with real evidence, where physics uses fake evidence. And if the physicists have integrity, they don't use fake evidence, like Newton. And if the physicist doesn't have integrity, then they just make up a silly story, a God of the Gap answer, like bent space. Push is causal interaction, which requires a certain proximity for, an exchange of energy direction, but pull is a more complicated arrangement of push activities. Well, I'm just saying that push, I can just say, I can give you a simple task. I can say you have 2 things or 10 things, and I can just give them to you and say, here they are in space. And I can say, with movement, make push. Well, that's really so fucking easy. But you can't make pull. So if I say make pull with movement, I can't make pull with movement. You see, so I'm just saying you can see the obvious limitation pull has. No way to fix the errors, but you've said they can redo the Eddington experiment. They just don't. Well, I'm just saying that's just evidence of how poor the evidence is. So I'm just saying they obviously, once they've declared something proven, they don't feel any obligation because nobody's aware of how bad the evidence is. So me saying it doesn't mean anything to them. So until the public knows how bad the experiment is, they don't feel any obligation. And I think clearly they know if they tried to do the experiment, they would fail because the experiment is basically impossible. So if you did the experiment with actually good evidence, you'd find out that first your results aren't going to, they're probably not going to, it's not going to work. But what you're really going to find out is this is an impossible experiment. You can't possibly measure the star's position accurately enough to measure the tiny amount of difference they're looking for. It's a stupid experiment on its face. And let's understand, they had the most perfect eclipse you could possibly have last year. Over the most technically advanced experimental equipment. They didn't have to haul a telescope somewhere. They could use gigantic telescopes instead of using a 12-inch, right? Eddington had to use a 12-inch telescope that was 14 feet long, right? And he had to haul it to South America up on the top of a mountain, right? And he had to take the picture shooting the light through a mirror into the telescope, right? Into a mirror of unknown perfection, to do this tiny calculation, right? This very precise calculation, and you're going to put the light through a fucking mirror, a mirror that you heat it up a little bit, the whole thing is fucked. A little bit of dirt, a little mist, a little anything on the mirror, the experiment's fucked. I mean, can you imagine how bad this is? And they had the perfect conditions. No rain, perfect sky, perfect eclipse, and nobody did the experiment. On the 100th anniversary of the experiment, right? The experiment was done in 1918, right? Or 1919, 18. I think it was 18. So on the 100th anniversary of the experiment, they have the most perfect eclipse, and they still don't do the experiment. I mean, it was 1917, right? So they have a 1917. So it's the 99th anniversary, and nobody does the experiment. Come on. Amazing fraud. Who are you? Who cares who I am? I'm an argument maker. I'm Mr. Argument Maker, or I'm the grand poobah of arguments, and I make arguments, and I seek rational counter arguments. Jesus, who am I? Oh, God. What do you want me to say? Wilburite. There, that's who I am. I'm Wilburite. Does that impress you? Does that mean something to you? You know, Biggest Dickus. I'm Biggest Dickus, yes. From Monty Python. I am the original Biggest Dickus. Just, nice to meet you. Well, that's all special and gooey. I'm really not doing the meetup thing, just asking. I know people ask stupid questions, and what people should do is respond to stupid questions with ridicule, and then people will stop asking stupid questions. That's the whole point, reward and punishment. I'm just doing rational reward and punishment. Say something smart, and I'll go, wow, that was really smart. Ask something stupid, and I'll go, that's stupid. And that'll be your punishment. I laugh because while you're laughing, it's hard to load a gun and blow your brains out. So laughter keeps me from blowing my brains out. Oh, look at that. He made the fuck you symbol with a little tiny finger. Yeah. Fuck this. You inverted finger fucker. Probably the wrong guy. I almost blocked Sid. Yeah, that'd be pretty funny. Kill Sid. Yeah, kill Sid. Put user in a shithole with a bunch of fire ants. That's the one I want. Yeah, it really is hard being rational on Earth. It really does wear on your patience. They treat people like Einstein like gods in documentaries. Yeah, I know. And even in in movies, they dramatize this stuff, and they just fuck the history entirely, and it's just so annoying. I mean, they did a movie on Eddington, and they did two movies on Eddington, and they were both so full of shit. I mean, one was just all this because he was a homosexual, so the whole story was just about being a homosexual, not a scientist. But yeah, and the other one was just such a lie. I mean, they show, look, we showed the results and we publicly exposed it, and we didn't look at it ahead of time, and look how honest it all was, when none of that happened. I mean, the whole results were engineered. I mean, it was all just, it was just a complete lie. Well, if there was a physics channel that was talking about rational physics, I guess I would like it. But I mean, obviously, they're all nutters. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, everybody else is wrong, and I happen to be right. I don't know what to say other than that. I mean, it's not my fault. Everybody else is an imbecile. I mean, you tell me what I'm supposed to like. Go ahead. Give me a suggestion about where the great physics channel is, where they're talking some sort of rational, well-evidenced sense. I mean, you have rope theories, and you have hyperboloid theories, you have ether theories, you got electrical theories, you got all kinds of wacky theories, and none of them have anything to do with evidence, matching evidence, duplicating, explaining why the experiments look the way they do. I mean, I wish there was somebody else I could just go point to it and say, that guy really knows what he's talking about. And I could go play with my penis. I mean, I don't want to be doing this. I am a creative person. And even when I'm not creative, I know how to have fun. I don't need to do this shit. I can do all kinds of other kinds of funny shit. I don't need to do this funny shit. I can do a better funny shit. I'm doing this because somebody needs to do it, because they're way off. They're way the fuck off. They've got way the wrong story. Yeah, well, I haven't found too many kernels, frankly. There was that one physics teacher, all right, who actually talked about internal reflections and inside of glass, and talking about not directly connected to interferometers, but kind of talking about the fact that what dust particles can do to refractive indexes and all that stuff. So I'll give that one guy some credit, but he was also full of shit because he tried to rationalize it as some sort of quantum mechanics effect. But I mean, the point was, it was pretty obvious that there's optical effects, and it doesn't have anything to do with photons interfering with each other. It has to do with the fact that photons take different paths through the glass. That's really good. I wonder what's really good. Dick says something's really good. I wonder what he thinks is really good. Yeah. See, I mean, I don't play internet like your Twitter people. So when you say something like that's really good, I know that's supposed to be like your hashtag or something. I'm supposed to know what that means, but I have no clue what you're talking about. Just none. Yes, that's my whole nature is complaining about broken shit. I've done that my whole life. I've been a complainer. Something's broken, I go, that's fucking broken. there's a little cat and it doesn't have food or it's in the rain. I said, oh, no, it's wrong. Just fix it. I always fix it. Fix it. If it's broken, fix it. So it's always been a thing in my head. Fix. And it's not like I want to fix things. It's just I hate broken. Broken pisses me off. I wish there was a cure to the tick problem. Yeah, well, like I said, I've gotten around it now. So I take a really hot bath every night. And I haven't had Lyme disease since then. So that certainly helps, I think. I haven't seen a tick on me since. So it's been over a year, not a single tick. But part of the problem was the cat. I had the feral cat that lived in the house. And I think he brought a tick in, and unfortunately, the tick laid eggs in the house. And that was a big problem. So I sprayed, and then I took everything and put it in a hot dryer, and killed all the nymphs and creepy tick larvae and all that shit. And so that really helped too. But yeah, I mean, I had Lyme disease 12 times. 12 times. You don't want Lyme disease, not the bad versions. There's a few different versions. So a couple of the versions, they didn't make me too sick, but one of them, it could kill you. It was so bad. Yeah, well, there's only one cat now, and he's 2 days on, 2 days off, and he doesn't like me that much. He likes to, have his head scratched, eat some food, but that's all the interaction he wants from me. So, yeah, not, I don't have near the same exposure. It is a weird feeling. I mean, I haven't not had to feed cats. I mean, I've been feeding cats. And again, these were cats that somebody else's cats that I got stuck with here, feral cats. I've been feeding feral cats for 40 years. And it's a weird feeling not to have to go out in the morning and feed the cats. It's weird, but I really miss Santino. He's a great cat. Best house guest you can imagine. He was just so good. He just sat in his chair, and I sat in my couch. We had our thing, and we just never crossed any lines. He's just such a good cat. Oh, I'm drifting off subject. You people are always dragging me into the sewer of this personal crap. Physics. Come on, physics. You can do it. Such. So yeah, I have so much stuff to do. I have all these experiments to do. I have all this programming to do, and here I am sitting in here doing this. I have all these notes to decipher. Look at all these notes. I got all these crappy little cruddy notes with food stains on them and shit. And crappy notes. I have all these crappy notes to compile. Ugh. I had to fix a sump pump today, right? So it's this, let's see, what's the brand? It's really famous. But anyway, it's a $250 submersible sump pump, cast iron. And they sell them for $250 new. And it's got this stupid plastic switch in it. I mean, it's a piece of crappy plastic inside all this cast iron, little plastic on-off switch. Piece of shit. And it's the second one I've had where the plastic crappy switch breaks. But you can't buy it except from the pump manufacturer for $32. It's less than a light switch. It's a piece of shit plastic crappy switch. $32. So I refused to buy it. So instead, I took the crappy on-off switch off a frickin' $60 pump that was broken. You know, that's one of these floppy independent wire things. It's a crappy switch, but at least it's better than a $35 switch. And so I made a Franken pump. And but see, all these are things I have to do. And it just all consumes my physics time. It's really irritating. Chinese student Runzi Chow on YouTube has completely debunked Einstein's relativity, FYI. Oh, so this Illuminati guy is back here for some reason. Worth looking him up. He's part of the 2015 Team Canada Physics Olympiad. Well, this all sounds like such a big pile of crap. Runzi Chow. Doesn't even sound like a real guy. But I'm sure the debunk isn't as deep as I would like. I saw that. Okay. He doesn't think you can go faster than the speed of light, though. Well, of course you can't. I don't know why anyone would think you can, because there's absolutely no evidence that you can. So why would anybody think you can? Oh, I don't know. Franken pump works, yes. Can't go faster than light. Matter is made of it. Yes. Fish. The school can't go faster than the fish. Get it? The school of fish can't go faster than the fucking fish in the school. I said that he thinks you can. Oh. Doesn't he think you can go faster than the speed of light, though? Yes, question mark. Okay. Sorry, Sid. If that's what he thinks, he's an idiot. Well, okay. I'm just saying this debunk. I'm sure it's a shitty debunk, but whatever. I mean, Einstein's theory isn't all that. It doesn't apply to anything in the real world. Understand? There's the whole way it's manufactured. It can't apply to anything real because nothing real can go anywhere near fast enough for any of the relativistic effects to mean anything. So it can't mean anything, all of this crap. It just means something in the sense that he has this stupid thing tied to it, which is gravity and time are somehow tied together, which is just a pile of crap. That there's some sort of dimensional tie, and there's no time dimension. It's just horseshit. But again, I'll just argue. Einstein's just saying there's a convergence. That's gravity. And you can make that by pushing things in just as well. It makes so much sense if the sun converts matter to energy because it essentially made of it. But light is such a tiny amount of energy. It's minuscule. It's so tiny as an amount of energy. You know how much light it takes to make this movement? If I had to move this pen sideways with laser beams, it would take gigawatts of laser light to just do this. And yet gravity does it all day long. Relativity self-contradicts. Well, that's only part of the problem. It's stupid. It's silly. It's God of the gaps mush. It's unevidenced mush. Time is what motion requires. We live in a universe where things don't happen instantaneously. This can't instantaneously be here. It takes time for it to progress, to get here. And that's invents time. So as soon as you have non-instantaneous, you have time. But that's all time is. Time is just how long it takes to do all the non-instantaneous things. You know, time is a function. It is not a dimension. The Chinese guy shows how Einstein's reasoning is retarded. Well, whatever. Einstein thought that because of how light takes time to reach your eyes, it means that if he didn't see something happen yet, it did not. Dumb. Einstein was the one who argued that when you're not looking at the moon is still there. So let's understand. Quantum mechanics is the wacky one, where it says things don't exist unless we're conscious of them, or we're watching them, or we're experimenting on them, or we're testing them. Yeah, right, sure. So let's not say Einstein was dumb, because he obviously wasn't dumb. And Einstein was correct to argue that photons always move the speed of light. So let's understand, people kind of pervert what Einstein was saying, but Einstein was basically saying clocks break. That's what Einstein was saying. He was saying the photons always do the same thing. They cover a certain amount of distance in a certain amount of time. And the only way you can see something differently is you have to be broken. You have to be seeing it wrong. So I wouldn't blame Einstein for every perversion of relativity. But yes, I think the whole idea was stupid. It's a God of the gaps answer to gravity, to just come up with this stupid bent geometry shit where you have no energy, you don't explain what happened at all. It's a fake answer. And the reason why I got away with it is because nobody had a better answer, because it wasn't me there saying, what about this particle thing? Why don't you just do the push thing, fuckheads? That 300-year-old idea that you threw in the toilet. Yeah, bring that. Let's talk about it, fuckheads. So there was nobody pointing out how you can explain gravity with an external force. The same force as the cosmic background radiation. Yeah, well, time can't appear. You can't look at time, so time doesn't appear like anything. Things appear, and you can watch things with a camera that's running at the right frame rate, or you can run the movie film really slow, or you can run the movie really fast. But you never watch time. You watch events. And you can see the whole event, or you can see just little clips of the event. When you're time dilated, you're missing a ton of the action, right? So when you're really, really time, like if I move you near the speed of light, 10,000 years of events happen, and you only see like 4 of them. Most of them are just totally beyond your perception, because your clock is so fucking slow. Well, 56 ain't too good. Let's see where people are. See, you get on a subject like this horse shit, and all of a sudden you talk a lot. I mean, relativity is so uninteresting. Let's see. Now that I think of it, a lot of them simply aren't imperialists. They think they can discover truth by playing with their thoughts. Well, yeah, they're certainly not playing with evidence. Clocks only break because of time dilation. No, they break because of velocity. Velocity is a real thing that happens. A bunch of stuff goes in when you're accelerating. A bunch of force is going inside of you and totally fucking up your atoms. That's breaking your clock. And it happens to muons and it happens to any structure. All structures that get accelerated get broken by the acceleration. God. Clueless. I got a 56 on my physics exam. I don't know why you're saying that, like it's supposed to mean something to everybody, but you know, that sort of sounds depressing, right? Sorry, but you're probably, because the yin yang thing probably isn't a great icon if you're doing physics. Yin yang isn't really physics, that's metaphysics. GR only describes, it doesn't explain causal mechanisms. I don't even think it describes, frankly. It doesn't describe reality. So I think that's horseshit. There's no reason to believe you could accelerate a human being to half the speed of light even without disintegrating its our three-dimensional structure. Light is a one-dimensional object. It goes the speed of light. It only has one dimension. It only has force in one dimension, the dimension in which it's moving forward, back. And clearly, if you cut the 3 dimensions into 6 subdimensions, it only has mass in one subdimension. That is the direction it's moving. Matter has 3-dimensional structure. So to make matter go very fast, you have to get rid of those 2 extra dimensions. This way and this way have to go for you to go this way very fast. It's the school of fish argument. If you want the school of fish to go very fast, you have to get rid of all the fish going the wrong fucking way. I agree with Gary. Time originates from operations acting on objects. No, it just originates because it takes time to move distance. It's not complicated. Movement takes time. Creating motions and events don't have anything. Motion takes time. You can't change your physical position instantaneously. It takes time to change your physical position in the 3-dimensional space of reality. In the 3 real dimensions, it takes time to change your position. That's all time does, nothing else. It has no other function. Let's see. It's 95 minutes. All right. I study for like 5 minutes, but IDK what happened. Well, I don't know. So you're just talking shit. Is that what you're doing here? You're just here to do shit? So I'll block you soon then. Okay. Yeah, technically, you'd never notice the time slow down yourself because your brain is slowed down too. Well, I say you would notice because you'd see somebody go like this to throw a ball, and you never see him throw it. And you just see the ball break a window or something. I mean, you'd be missing so much of the action. You'd be like, holy fuck, I'm totally fucked up. You'd die long before reaching those speeds. Yes, your matter will not be well formed. It will be disrupted. Speed is disruptive. Yeah, I'm kind of mad about it, but I don't care because physics is useless. Okay, we're gonna just block you. We're done with this useless asshole. Goodbye, whoever you were, Gumby, Jimbo fucking douchebaggy. Oh, everything else was retracted. Okay, good. Excellent. Well, you did engage me for a while, so I'll give you credit. You did get me to respond. I don't think the only part of relativity I care about are the claims that somehow the theory was proven because Eddington did a fake experiment and because they have these stupid, incomprehensibly, mathematically idiotic lensing images that can't possibly be true as they describe them with this wrongly shaped lens. So there's no evidence that photons are bent by gravity. Einstein was never proven right about that. And clearly the rest of relativity can't be proven. And the only thing that I would agree with Einstein is that velocity affects the metabolism of atoms. That is, if I'm dancing as fast as I can in one position and somebody tells me to multitask and move to my left, I can't dance as fast and also move. So clearly, if I gain velocity, velocity means that my atoms are doing something else. They're moving in a direction. So whatever they were doing when they were stationary, they can't still be doing it exactly the same way while they're moving. Because moving means they have to take time out to do the moving part. So they can't possibly have the same cycles. So if the muon's decay is dependent on how many times an electron goes around the proton, the number of times it's going to go around is going to be less if the muon is moving, because that circle becomes elongated. And so it's slower. But I've literally explained that like 100 times. Yes, 100 times at least. The LHC, why are all these supposed particles moving in spirals? Well, they're really not doing that. Many of them don't go into spirals. Spirals indicates charge. But more importantly, as I've explained before, electrons can't carry momentum. So when an electron is let loose at a velocity, it quickly starts to slow down. And the argument would be, as it's losing momentum, the world around it is moving. It's sort of stopping, and the world is still moving. So the movement might just be what stopping looks like. When you lose velocity in the real world, it might look like the same as the world spinning around you. So, but there could be other reasons why the electron spirals, but it's not a very neat spiral. There's lots of inconsistencies in the spirals. If you look at them, they're not like the spirals you would expect from, say, an asteroid in the solar system. They have a bizarre irregularities in them, for which there's, I don't think, any rational explanation. But clearly, the electron's not moving through clean atmosphere. It's not moving through empty space. It's moving through a medium where it's crashing into a bunch of atoms, ions. It's crashing into a bunch of electrons, essentially, to create the cloud disturbance that we're seeing. So the electron isn't moving through free space, it's moving through a very thick fog. So it's hardly a natural function of the electron. So again, you can't make assumptions about this is what electrons do when they're only doing it because they're in mud. It's what electrons do when you push them through mud. It might not be what electrons do if you shoot them into space. Amazing. You know, this guy, Brian Cox, is, douchebag, is always flapping about it, and he never explains it. I hate Brian Cox. Well, I hate all the talking heads. All the talking heads of physics are douchebags. Yeah, we can't see electrons. Again, we can't see any of this stuff. And again, just to understand, you heard in the PBS guy actually said it. Well, by our mathematics, electrons are infinitesimally small and have no mass and have no, and then we know we're crashing them into photons. We know that the electrons flying through the fog chamber. I mean, how can we say it's infinitesimally small when we're watching it plow through a fog? I mean, it just doesn't, what sense does any of that crap make? I mean, I remember in like eighth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, I think, we actually did the little cloud chamber thing in physics class. And, a little piece of dry ice and a little radioactive isotope. And, you put a little cloth around it and then you sat there and you put a light in there and you watched the little, the little shooters, and it was really fascinating. But even then, my brain was saying, what am I seeing? I'm not seeing the thing shooting. I'm seeing what it's doing to this dry ice alcohol stuff. And, we always have to keep that in mind, that it's not this electron. I'm not seeing the electron. I'm seeing photons bouncing off of atoms that have been misaligned by having an electron fly through them. My understanding is that the electron is itself its own probability of where it is. That's the cloud. Well, whatever. There's no cloud. The electron is nothing is Heisenberging. Everything that moves for a reason. The most reliable thing in the world is the photon. The kind of second most reliable is the protons and the electrons. I mean, it's once you get to atoms, things are getting a lot more wobbly. But I mean, come on. We know where the wobble starts. It starts with the electrons and the protons. They're the first wobbles because they're being bombarded by a force that isn't perfect. There's no perfect symmetry to the force at any one moment. It's only perfectly symmetrical over time. But at any one moment, it's not symmetrical. The electron, you could basically say, has no equilibrium. Electrons are never happy. They're just never quiet. But they also don't like going very far. You can't make an electron go very far. It just doesn't like to do it. You just can't. It runs out. Its momentum leaks out of it. That's what the EMF is. The EMF, right? The magnetism, or whatever you want to call it, the electromotive force that leaks out of the electron is its momentum leaking out of it. That's its velocity. That's its acceleration leaking out of it. Let's see, cloud, according to them. Yes, okay. Well, there's no point in saying something unless you're saying it. So say the according to them, my understanding. I don't know. See, that doesn't work either. My understanding is that according to them, I mean, you're still sounding like you're endorsing what they're saying. So I'm just saying, you have to be a little careful about how you word things because it sounds like you're saying that's what you say is there. That's a good argument by them, when it could be a horseshit argument. So it's 3:30. What the fuck? Okay, yeah, way past bedtime. Well, it's not that far past actually. But anyway, yeah, I'm hungry. Anyway, time to go. So sorry this was so long. Didn't realize. Oof. Sorry. It was pretty late to say, oh, sorry. Yeah, after 3 hours of, playing the same butt fucking porn movie. And I say, oh, sorry, I left it on repeat. Sorry, I have never understood what they say. Good. In 8th grade, my teacher couldn't answer my questions. Exactly my scenario. And like I said, in 8th grade, when they started doing this thing, photons are this and this and this and, that's a photon. It's like, what are you? What are you talking about? Nothing does that. That's crap. How does it know how to do that? All that snaky shit. I mean, it just sounded like such crap. And as soon as I heard the frequency thing, I'm like, it's just obvious. Frequency is just distance between something. That's frequency. Fuck wavelength, fuck period, fuck all that. It's just frequency. How often, how quickly did you pull the trigger on the gun? So yeah, I never bought their story. But like I said, there's so much to physics, right? It's hard to compose all this stuff. So if I never thought of the silver force, yellow force, the red, black force, the proton force, the electron force, if I never thought of that, I'd still be arguing for particle gravity, but I'd have a lot weaker argument. I mean, figuring that part out just makes it all fit. And, so now it's all obvious. I mean, it's just, I'm sitting here on top of a big pile of obvious. I mean, it's just so visible. I can see for miles and miles. I can see physics signs that are 100 miles away. I can see it all. Mostly. So anyway. So till next time and such and so forth and whatnot. I get the hell out of here. Yeah, that's enough. Thanks. Till next time.